Usually we don't get news on weekends. Usually you expect Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. During the business day, the NFL is going to break the story because that's when you get ESPN. That's where you get major networks able to talk about it. But hell, it's Sunday. We just learned that Deebo Samuel got the freaking bag. I have no idea why Deebo Samuel got that type of money guaranteed. If you look at him in comparison to the DK Metcalf contract, to the AJ Brown contract, I think this does have fantasy football implications. And we also have updated news on Deshaun Watson. So let's see where these players go in this draft. Let's see the implications. Of course, I'll talk about this as this draft goes through. It looks like it's going to get kicked off in about 10 seconds. We're going to be drafting at pick 10. We had a draft last night on the live stream for pick 11 where we were able to start off with the combination of Dalvin Cook and Najee Harris. Unsure if we are going to get that kind of blessing today. Unsure if we're going to be able to start off that hot. But what you can do to help us start off hot on this live stream is you can go down there, drop a like on the stream for the only person that is willing to live stream every single night of their life. Real money fantasy football drafts for you. And the reason I'm doing this every single night is because Underdog Fantasy makes it so much fun. The best place to draft fantasy football leagues and have extra drafts outside of your main fantasy football league every single season. If you go to draft on Underdog Fantasy, you can draft with us every single night on the live stream, draft in the public lobby, have a ton of fun. And when you sign up and use promo code FLOCK, they will match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You'll get our 2022 rankings. You'll get our 2022 draft guide. So 300 pages, literally with a $10 deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK. You can find it in the description of the video. But very standard draft so far. Literally, this is the 6 top guys according to ADP. Do I need to talk about anything at this point? Unless you've been living under a rock, you should know that this is how the majority of your fantasy football drafts are going to go through the first 6 picks. Now, I think that there's going to be a massive tier drop-off after Jamar Chase at 5. I think if you're at pick 6, it's going to be pretty damn hard to really pick a direction between those running backs that are going to have some red flags and then a wide receiver that could be seen in the elite level tier. But in this draft, let's think through this quickly. Let's go ahead. Let's take Najee Harris. Let's take Najee Harris at 10. I'm not ecstatic about it. I think that you could possibly make an argument that if we could get Joe Mixon coming back around to us at pick 15, then we should go ahead. We should take Devontae Adams and try to pair him up with Joe Mixon in the second round. However, based on the people we are drafting with being very sharp, I think it's going to be hard to see Mixon making it back to us at 15. So I don't even know if we can go that route. We're probably going to end up taking like a Najee Harris and a Mike Evans. But let's see how this goes. We have PB and Chill deciding to go Devontae Adams at pick 11. Can't fault them at all for Devontae Adams there. I mean, you're looking at him super close to Najee Harris in this format where you have to start 3 wide receivers. Okay, Mixon does indeed go to Noah at 13. Noah, a longtime member of the flock. Noah made us this sign behind us. Also made us a very beautiful Underdog Fantasy sign right there next to us as well. Of course, Noah's contributed so much to the channel. But let's see. PB and Chill decides to go Travis Kelce. I understand this is not what best player available according to ADP is. I think that DeAndre Swift is an ascending player. Aaron Jones is a descending player. I think both guys are very similar in terms of their value being derived from the receiving game, and they can also have a red zone usage in their offense. I was the #1 fanboy of DeAndre Swift last year when people were telling you not to draft him in the 3rd or 4th round because of Jamal Williams. DeAndre Swift was one of my most drafted running backs behind Joe Mixon. But I'm just looking at Aaron Jones and that Green Bay Packers offense as a team that's going to put up so many more points. Okay, so let's go ahead, see what happens after this. DeAndre Swift, 16, then Saquon Barkley, 17. Mike Evans falling all the way down to 18. Not too surprising to see Mike Evans falling down to 18 with the Julio Jones signing. Now, personally, I don't think you should be pushing down Mike Evans that far. I don't think Julio Jones should affect the Mike Evans outlook. He's still going to be this team's number one option in the red zone, especially with no Rob Gronkowski. You're drafting him for the touchdown upside. I don't think that goes anywhere. I think really you only have to move down a Russell Gage, if we're going to be completely honest, with the Julio Jones edition. So yes, Mike Evans is going to be going later in these drafts, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think that we should be avoiding him, if that makes sense. Patty says, has the Deebo deal been discussed? We are about to get that right now once we have Deebo Samuel off the clock at pick 20. Now, I don't necessarily understand this Deebo Samuel contract. Like, let me run over to Twitter real quick just so I can make sure I get these numbers correct, because remember, Deebo Samuel in that same 2019 draft class as AJ Brown, as DK Metcalf. So you should expect that these guys all get paid the same year. They all get their extensions the same year. Now, in the case of DK Metcalf, Deebo Samuel, their teams were willing to actually pay them, whereas you had AJ Brown in Tennessee. For whatever reason, Tennessee was too afraid to give AJ Brown that guaranteed money, decided to sell him so they can pay Treylon Burks less. But AJ Brown got a total of $40 million guaranteed. DK Metcalf got $31 million guaranteed. Deebo Samuel, $58 million guaranteed. And really, guaranteed money is the only thing that's going to matter on these NFL contracts, in my opinion, depending on how it's structured, of course, mainly depending on how it's structured. But we can't see the exact structure of that Deebo Samuel deal just yet. But you're looking at Deebo Samuel almost getting double the amount of guaranteed money of a Metcalf. Maybe this tells us that Deebo Samuel role is going nowhere. Maybe this tells us that Deebo Samuel is a wide receiver that is deserving of this mid-second round selection. We were talking about in the live stream last night that I have been drafting a lot of Deebo Samuel in the mid-second round, but every time I draft Deebo there, I click the button and I'm like, oh, God, that was gross. I'm not excited about this at all. Like, did we really just have to take Deebo Samuel? But maybe this is a good sign for his usage. Let me know if y'all think this has any fantasy football implications. It can't be bad for Deebo. And possibly, maybe this means that they're going to be able to get the Jimmy Garoppolo contract off the books. Maybe I'm being too optimistic here, but maybe they make this extension now because they are thinking they're going to be able to get that done and over with. Okay. But Mike Williams goes pick 28. I am surprised to see this Nick Chubb value. I mean, we've talked about this almost every single live stream now, but it seems like Nick Chubb went from being one of the most overvalued running backs in fantasy for the past 3 years to now we're waiting on Watson news, but apparently we're going to get the Watson decision tomorrow, or at least we're going to have an idea of what that's going to look like. And Nick Chubb's potentially going to have the best quarterback play of his entire NFL career, being the best offense he's ever had. The Cleveland Browns, according to PFF, should have a top 3 offensive line this upcoming season. Nothing's changed with this Nick Chubb situation to make it worse. I think Nick Chubb went from being one of the worst picks in fantasy at the end of the first round to one of the best picks in fantasy if you are now going to be getting him there in the third. But Michael Pittman Jr. goes off the board at pick 32. We have here Von Grubby, I believe that's how we say this name. I apologize if I got this incorrect. They started Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift through the first 2 rounds, so very similar to our Najee Harris and Aaron Jones start, both with the 2017 running back as well as a younger guy to build around. They go Kyle Pitts. Kyle Pitts was going to be my guy. I hate to do this. I hate to start 3 running backs in a row just like we did in last night's live stream, but I think this is the value. I'm not really going to be too excited about taking Travis Etienne anymore whenever you're looking at Travis Etienne as now a running back that could potentially be losing red zone work to James Robinson. I think he's a less appealing running back at the end of the third than he was before. So let's take James Conner, hope that we get a wide receiver that we like making back. If not, maybe we end up just reaching for Deontay Johnson. But I think this is where Deontay Johnson should probably be valued. We have Adam coming out with a donation. Thank you, my man. Says, I got 9 out of 10. Derrick Henry is a keeper. Should I take Saquon Barkley at the turn around, or should I go with Deebo, Diggs, or Devontae Adams and pray Hall or Travis Etienne make it there. Okay, so you got 9 out of a 10-team league. I think you are going to end up taking Saquon Barkley if this is a 10-team format and I'm reading this correctly, even over. Actually, no, you're saying Stephon Diggs will be there. No, if you're getting Derrick Henry as a keeper and we're looking for some wide receiver value, in my opinion, I think that instead of deciding to just take Saquon Barkley, believe you're going with best player available, let's might as well just lock in Stephon Diggs. Let's lock in one of those tier 1 wide receivers. In my opinion, Diggs is going to have the upside to be the wide receiver 1 overall, especially if you are going to have Derrick Henry as a keeper and you already almost have that running back 1 production guaranteed. There's no reason not to take Stephon Diggs with your first pick, in my opinion. Yeah. Now, Terry McLaurin goes pick 40. Okay, Jack, my man, please do not spam the live chat. If you're spamming the chat, you're ruining the live stream for everyone else. You will be muted for the time being. I apologize, but please don't spam it over and over again. Casey says, take Courtland Sutton Mason. Y'all know I went on that little rant yesterday saying, oh, the only reason I pass on Courtland Sutton is because I have him in almost every single fantasy draft because I'm so excited to draft the next Cooper Kupp, so excited to draft a player that has to smash because DK Metcalf did well with Russell Wilson. DK Metcalf is tall. Courtland Sutton's tall. That means Courtland Sutton's going to do good. Went on some long rant about being so excited to draft a 27-year-old wide receiver that's never been a top 24 receiver on a per game basis. Obviously being sarcastic. I thought I couldn't be more sarcastic than I was. And we had people in the comment section going, oh my gosh, this guy really thinks that Courtland Sutton is the next Cooper Kupp. This guy's explanation is horrendous. So maybe I need to be a little bit more clear whenever I'm going to be sarcastic, or maybe we can let the straight up fools think that I'm actually excited about drafting Courtland Sutton this season. Jimmer Range coming out and says, does Underdog do higher than 100? Thank you, of course, my man, for coming out with the live stream. Someone that was out here a lot last year. I'm assuming you're asking, does Underdog Fantasy do higher than $100 buy-in leagues? Yes, we actually entered into both the Bulldog and the Great Dane on Underdog Fantasy over the past month. It's going to be a $500 draft. We've already completed. A video is on the live stream. And then, I'm sorry, not on the live stream, on the channel. And then we also have a $1,000 draft underway. I'm about to be on the clock in that $1,000 draft. Let me pull it up. I am on the clock in the $1,000 draft right now. No, I apologize. That was the wrong notification. That was a notification for this one. We are 2 picks away. I'll show you all the $1,000 draft at the very end of this live stream. I probably am going to need your opinion on it. But at the end of round 4 here, you have some great values. You have freaking Darren Waller, pick 46. Post Dylan. I hate drafting with Dylan. Like, look at the team at 3. This is a person that I have to draft with in so many dynasty leagues. He is a part of the flock, has been a part of the flock for a very long time. So, of course, I appreciate my dude, but at the same time, I always hate drafting with him. If I see him in the draft room, I know it's going to be a much harder draft. It's difficult for him to really affect our strategy and to affect how our team turns out when he's picking all the way at the other side of the board from us. But still, that's a great start so far. Going Cooper Kupp, Tyreek Hill, correctly identifying that you should probably go Tyreek Hill here at pick 22 if you're going to get that Nick Chubb value falling to you in the 3rd, and then still getting that elite level tight end with Darren Waller, pick 46. And now he goes Lamar Jackson, 51, getting that elite level quarterback, the quarterback that could be the #1 guy overall this upcoming season. I hate drafting with Dylan. I appreciate the guy. I really like the guy, but I hate drafting with him. I truly do. Chris says, does this Deebo Samuel deal raise his ADP? I think it probably does. I mean, if we're going to go ahead, if we are going to look at where he's been going in fantasy drafts, would you be that surprised if the combination of the extension you had from Deebo Samuel as well as the Julio Jones signing makes people decide to begin to draft Deebo Samuel over Mike Evans? Please spam the chat right now. Let me know what you think. Spam the chat just with one word. Do you want Deebo or Mike Evans this season? Just spam it with who you want. So I am going to be interested in hearing your thoughts. Okay, so Chris Godwin goes pick 54. Okay, so we have some thoughts here. Evans, Deebo, Evans, Deebo, Evans. Looks like the majority of people are still preferring Mike Evans, but there are some people saying Deebo out there. It's not like everybody is in consensus with Mike Evans. I wouldn't be too surprised if that's something that we end up seeing change going forward. Juju Smith-Schuster off the board. Obviously, Kyler Murray completes the double stack here with us for James Conner and Hollywood Brown, but I think that we can take Brandon Cooks here as an ADP of pick 51, potentially get Kyler on the way back around. And now it doesn't happen. Kyler Murray goes directly after. So, of course, that Brandon Cooks selection looks horrendous. Now, what I will say is I'm fine getting Jalen Hurts in the 6th round if that ends up happening. But Kyler Murray has an ADP at the end of the 5th round here, of course, because he's an elite level quarterback with the potential quarterback 1 overall finish in his range of outcomes. But also at the same time, a major reason you have the Kyler Murray ADP is that really the team who takes Hollywood Brown, the team that takes James Conner, those are going to be the teams interested in drafting a Kyler Murray here at the 5-6 turn. So a lot of drafts, if you were the team taking Hollywood, you can actually roll the dice if you have a value falling to you like Brandon Cooks, 7 picks past his ADP, where we desperately need a wide receiver, and see if that you get Kyler Murray on the way back around in the 6th, because I think the odds that we had the combination of Cooks and Kyler Murray on this roster after the turn going to be probably like 30%. And the odds that we were able to get that combination if we took Kyler and waited on Brandon Cooks making it back to us, I think that would go down to like 10%. Mark says Deebo will get more usage than Evans. More volume equals more fantasy points. Y'all know I am the number one fanboy, or at least I used to be the number one fanboy of Trey Lance. But whenever I've been hyping Trey Lance for years now, it seems, especially in Dynasty, my analysis and my hype for Trey Lance was never based on the idea that I thought he was going to come into the NFL, that he was going to be some fantastic passing quarterback, that he was going to be potentially a top 10, top 5 quarterback in overall passing yards, passing touchdowns, or even in passing talent. No, I've never said Lance is going to be a talented quarterback. What is so exciting about Lance is he's very similar to Jalen Hurts, the quarterback that we just selected at pick 63. He's a quarterback that we know will have an elite rushing ceiling, and it doesn't even matter if he's a bad NFL quarterback. If he doesn't have passing volume, he will still be dynamic in fantasy football given his rushing. But I do think Lance coming in will be a bad thing for Deebo Samuel, will be a bad thing for Brandon Ayuk, and I'm not going to be surprised if you have the 49ers trying to be the most run-heavy team in the NFL this upcoming season. Let me know what you think, but I think it's 100% in the range of outcomes for the 49ers to be the most run-heavy team in the NFL. Like, even more run-heavy than the Baltimore Ravens. Burgundy Bets says, Mason, how many likes for another draft? We'll do exactly what we've done for the past week now, and we get it every single night. So, of course, thank y'all so much. I truly appreciate all the support of the live stream. If we get 250 likes in the live stream, we'll fire up another draft after this one. I'm assuming we are going to fire up another one. We've hit 250 likes in the live stream every single night. I think y'all appreciate these live streams as we are so damn consistent. But like I said, it's because I have so much fun drafting on Underdog and have fun hanging out with y'all. Derek says, Brady over Lance. In terms of fantasy football, I think if it's a 6-point passing touchdown format, I 100% agree with you. I don't even need to think about it. In a 4-point passing touchdown league where you only get 1 point per 25 passing yards, I'm having a hard time going ahead and pushing up those pure pocket passing options. I'm having a hard time getting there with Brady. Now, keep in mind, I've drafted Brady in a lot of drafts, but I'm taking Tom Brady. Like, let me pull up my last Best Ball Mania draft of the year. Yes, I maxed out Best Ball Mania, 150 entries in, but I had a draft where I believe we took Tom Brady. Maybe we didn't. Maybe we took Dak and Mahomes and I'm misremembering. Let's go ahead. Let's find this draft just so I can tell you where Lance went in this compared to where Tom Brady went. Okay, so no, I apologize. This is a draft where I ended up taking Patrick Mahomes, pick 54, and Dak Prescott at 102. But Lance goes pick 69 in this draft. Burrow, 77. Where the hell is Tom Brady? Tom Brady, 94. It's like Trey Lance picked 69, Tom Brady, 94 in that draft that we had, our last Best Ball Mania draft. I'm not saying I agree with that gap. Of course, I cannot say that. That's why I'm saying I'm no longer the biggest fan of Trey Lance. I'm no longer the leader of the fan club because clearly other people are more excited than I am. But even if you like Brady more than Lance, it's like you have to draft him that way. Now, let's go ahead. Let's take Christian Kirk here. I really like Kirk. I think we can go ahead. We can get Lawrence later on if we want. Probably not going to. But I think if you're looking at Kirk in the range of outcomes, he can crush Hunter Renfrow. Christian Kirk can have access to a ceiling that I don't think Hunter Renfrow can sniff. And I think we need a wide receiver here. I'm not interested in Tony Pollard at this price point. I'd be a lot more interested in Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Tony Pollard. CH does indeed go over him here. I think we need another wide receiver. I know we were just talking crap on Hunter Renfrow, but we're going to be taking him after Christian Kirk. We are taking him about 5-6 picks after his ADP. So let's go ahead. Let's take Hunter Renfrow. Hunter Renfrow actually did get a contract extension that I was pretty surprised about because we have to keep in context. There's definitely a different formula in NFL teams evaluating their slot wide receivers compared to what we should do in fantasy. Because in fantasy, we're chasing volume, we're chasing targets, we're chasing these fake points. From an NFL standpoint, these teams don't give a damn. All they really care about is how these wide receivers make defensive coordinators adjust for their offenses and how they can generate space and create big plays. Hunter Renfrow is a slot wide receiver that should be more valuable in fantasy than he is actually for the Las Vegas Raiders. This is why you see like an Amon-Ra St. Brown falling to the 4th round last year. And you have guys that have elite level speed that can stretch the field, but maybe can't command as many targets underneath like Tutu Atwell, like Dwayne Eskridge. They go in round 2. We see this every year. That's why you get John Ross as a top 10 pick. That's why you get Henry Ruggs drafted over CeeDee Lamb. So the contract extension for a slot wide receiver in particular in Hunter Renfrow that can't stretch the field, I think it is telling in that I think they have clear plans for Renfrow going forward. If we're just going to be talking about extensions, because, of course, Deebo got his. Okay. Derek says, Don, yes, I've drafted him in like 45% of leagues this year, and I would not touch him in the 4th. Okay. Yeah, Don says, Michael Thomas late 4th is a reach, question mark? 100%. Like, Michael Thomas is my most drafted wide receiver, but Michael Thomas is a wide receiver that now is going at the 6-7 turn. Used to be able to get Michael Thomas in the 8th. That's why Michael Thomas is my most drafted wide receiver. We used to get him late 7th, early 8th round. I almost had him fall to us at pick 93 in our in our $500 draft. I actually took him at the 6-7 turn in our $1,000 draft, but late 4th is too rich. Late 4th, you're drafting him a lot closer to his ceiling than where his actual average draft position is. Matthew says, Eskridge was already dropped in all my dynasty leagues. Oh, my man, you got to go pick up Dwayne Eskridge right now. Dwayne Eskridge is probably a very bad wide receiver. Dwayne Eskridge stayed all 5 years at Western Michigan. Dwayne Eskridge did not break out till later on, but he did play some defensive back. It was really weird. And if you're looking at Eskridge, this is a wide receiver that was actually significantly more productive on a per game basis than Sky Moore, their final season before Dwayne Eskridge got drafted. Like, let me go through, pull up Dwayne Eskridge's college stats. And I'm just saying for those deep dynasty formats, he's worth a roster spot. Like, let's go to Western Michigan in 2020. This is the final season. Dwayne Eskridge is there. You have Dwayne Eskridge accounting for a ridiculous amount of production. Like, Dwayne Eskridge, 768 receiving yards through 6 weeks. Sky Moore with only 5 weeks, so one less game, but still 388 receiving yards. Like, Eskridge dominated. Now, to be fair, that was Sky Moore's 2nd season. That was Dwayne Eskridge's 5th. But this is a 2nd round draft pick. We don't know what Tyler Lockett's future in the team is in 2023, in 2024. So 100%, I'm going to be going ahead. I'm going to be picking up Dwayne Eskridge in every dynasty format that you have the roster spot for. But Julio Jones in the 9th round. Okay, if this is where Julio Jones is going to be drafted ahead of someone like Robert Woods, ahead of James Cook, I can't get on board with Julio Jones here. I will 100% be passing. I think in this pick in particular, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take a wide receiver. If we're looking at the turn, I think Girthquake, Noah, he has to go wide receiver. So let's take Robert Woods here. I made a video talking about Robert Woods earlier today. I think that if you're looking at the target share available in Tennessee, and if you're looking at the fact that this offensive line may not allow this team to be as run heavy as they've been in the past, Robert Woods is a pretty solid bet in fantasy football this year with this price point in particular, hovering around the wide receiver 50. And then we can still get one of these running backs that we like on the way back around. We can still get a rookie in James Cook. We can still get Kenneth Walker. Because like I said, I think Girthquake, I think he has to go wide receiver. Yeah, he goes Tyler Boyd. At quarterback, he has Dak. At tight end, he has Hawkinson. Yeah, and he goes Garrett Wilson over Chase Claypool. Can't fault that at all. Gardner Minshew says, hey, Mace, what are your thoughts on Devonta Smith? Smith puts up one of the best collegiate seasons of all time. He did it in his 4th year, but Devonta Smith had a reason for staying all 4 years at Alabama. You have to go back and look at the fact that that Alabama receiving corps was one of the best collegiate receiving corps of all time. At one point on that roster, they had the combination. Hear me out. They had the combination of Jerry Jeudy, Henry Ruggs, Devonta Smith, Jalen Waddle, and John Mechie. All on one roster. Devonta Smith actually averaged more receiving yards per game than Jerry Jeudy when Devonta Smith was a junior. Like, he was a fantastic wide receiver prospect. Of course, undersized. He didn't weigh much at all, so he did get some flack, but he was significantly invested into in last year's NFL draft. The issue is going to be the overall passing volume of the offense in Philadelphia, combined with the fact that I think, in my opinion, he has no shot at being the wide receiver 1 there over A.J. Brown. So I think he is appropriately valued. I have him in a decent amount of leagues, which I've actually found surprising. Like, I didn't intend for him to be one of my most drafted players, but he's slowly becoming that when he's sliding to the middle of the 7th round in a lot of these. I think in this draft, he goes at the 6th, 12th. Mindcracker coming out says, got the first pick in the draft and need advice on a keeper pick. Are we going to go Kupp for a 2nd, Pittman for a 7th, or Javonte Williams for an 8th in a half PPR format? I think a lot of people overvalue their actual keeper cost associated, and that if we're looking at Cooper Kupp in the 2nd, say, versus Javonte Williams in the 8th, it's going to be very easy. All you need to go through is you need to map out the available player pool and determine who is going to be available in that 2nd round. So in a keeper format, of course, the 2nd round isn't going to be as valuable, isn't going to be as good as what we'd find in, say, this league. So say in a keeper format, a 2nd round pick's like a 4th round pick. So guys going in that range, Cam Akers, Darren Waller, Deontay Johnson, Cortland Sutton. And say an 8th round pick's more like a 10th round pick. So if we're looking at it from a trade perspective and you have to keep Cooper Kupp in the 2nd round, in theory, giving up one of these players in the 4th versus keeping Javonte Williams in the 8th and giving up one of these players in the 10th, would you rather have Cooper Kupp and, say, one of these 10th round players, Kenneth Walker, who we take, or would you rather have Javonte Williams and one of these 4th round players, say, a Terry McLaurin? In my opinion, it's not going to be close. You still take the elite level option, even if they have the higher keeper cost associated with them. I'm still going to be going Cooper Kupp, even though he costs a 2nd round pick, unless you map out the player pool and you're like, you know what, Mason, I can come away with a truly elite level player. I mean, I can come away with, I don't know how this would happen, but I can come away with a DeAndre Swift. I can get an Aaron Jones in the 2nd round. And that guy in the 8th round is going to be a complete throw-in, someone not worth anything. Then you need to go ahead. You need to reevaluate the situation. But based on my experience in keeper leagues, I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Kupp in the 2nd. Okay. Jason says, a Watson suspension prediction. Okay. Of course, I'm going to make myself look like an idiot. No matter what I say here, I am going to look so dumb because I think this suspension can be anywhere from 0 games to 2 seasons. I think there is such a wide range of outcomes. What I've said since the day the Cleveland Browns signed for him, traded for him, I apologize, and then signed him to the most guaranteed money in NFL history. I said, I don't have access to Roger Goodell. I don't have access to anybody in NFL circles. I'm not a lawyer. I am just an idiot on YouTube. So all I can do is look at NFL team actions. I can look at the actions of people who do have access to Roger Goodell, that do have access to interleague circles, like the Cleveland Browns ownership. And if they were willing to give up 3 first-round picks plus give Deshaun Watson the most guaranteed money in NFL history, I think that everybody saying it's a guaranteed season-long suspension, I think that they are fooling themselves. I would, if I had to pick a number, if I had to pull a random number out of my butt, which of course, no matter what I say, I'm going to look stupid because I am stupid. Let's call it 10 weeks. 10 weeks. Okay, Gallup goes 129. Let's think through this. Let's go ahead. Let's take Alexander Mattison here. This is going to be our last running back drafted. I don't like taking running back in this range. I think with our roster construction, it probably would serve us better to go ahead and take a wide receiver or a tight end. My issue is I'm looking at Alexander Mattison and saying he is so much better than every other player available here that screw the roster construction. Who gives a damn? It's Alexander Mattison at pick 130. We know if Dalvin Cook misses, say, 4 weeks this upcoming season, you crush this pick. Just freaking crush it. Okay, now Jalen Tolbert goes pick 131. Noah on the clock. I find myself in round 11 actually drafting a decent amount of McCole Hardman in best ball. But the reason is I'm drafting Patrick Mahomes in the 5th round so damn often that it's almost like an auto pick. You have to take McCole Hardman in the 11th. But if I don't have Patrick Mahomes, I don't care about taking McCole Hardman here. Girthquake going with another rookie, deciding to take Jahan Dotson. I guess once we get to the 12th, once you have McCole Hardman falling about 11 picks past his ADP, this is where we would go ahead. We would take him. I think he's going to be more appealing in a best ball format, given the big play potential that you could have. This is going to be one of the differences between drafting on Underdog Fantasy and your just casual redraft league. I do think you have to bump up these marginal wide receivers that could see random spike weeks, given the offenses that they are playing in. Similar to McCole Hardman, I think he's honestly the perfect example here at pick 135. This is an option that is the only wide receiver on the Kansas City Chiefs that has caught an NFL pass in a real NFL game before from Patrick Mahomes. Byron Pringle is gone. Demarcus Robinson is gone. Obviously, Tyreek Hill is gone. McCole Hardman's the only guy left there from the team last year. It's not an exciting pick. Usually I take him a lot in the 11th. If I would have taken Patrick Mahomes, I would have been very excited about this value, but I feel like it's just a necessity pick whenever we need wide receiver depth in this format. Okay, so let's go ahead. Brandon says, is it pointless to keep a quarterback in a 10-man league? I really hate answering keeper questions unless you are going to go ahead and give me every piece of information I need. Okay, and by the way, we are on the clock. Okay, this is another draft. This isn't the $1,000 draft. But if you are going to give me the amount of teams in your league, the amount of keepers that you are going to have, and the starting lineup requirements, then I can accurately look at your unique situation, and I think I can give you advice that's tailored. If you just ask something so broad and so general as, is it worth keeping a quarterback in a 10-team league? Hell, I don't know if I'm assuming it's not Superflex. I'm assuming it's one quarterback, but I don't know if you're keeping 10 players. I don't know if you're keeping 2 players. Of course, it's going to be worth keeping Josh Allen if you can keep 10 players, but it's a completely different situation if you're asking me if you can keep Dak Prescott out of your 3 keepers in a 10-team format. So please, if you are asking a question about a keeper league or really any fantasy football question, I can give you such a better answer. I played in almost every format imaginable. This is my entire life. I've been addicted to fantasy football my entire life. I played in almost any format you can draw up. I can give you advice tailored to you, but please, you got to give me your format. Big Snood says, reasons to not draft your own backups, ? If you draft your own backups, you are raising your floor in fantasy football. You're going to go ahead. You're going to make sure that you don't get last. Like, say we take James Conner here, and then we followed up with Darrell Williams near the end of our fantasy draft. We're going to make sure that we don't get last, because if James Conner goes down, yeah, we may not have a high-end running back 2 in fantasy, but at least we're going to have someone that could be a low-end running back 2, high-end running back 3. We could have someone to plug in. We're not going to embarrass ourselves out there. But at the same time, can we win our league that way? Can we be the one team out of 12 to access an elite level ceiling and to actually do the impossible, do something that I've never done in my entire life and win a fantasy football league? I don't think so. When it comes to handcuffing your own players, it is going to come down to the opportunity cost and the other options you are passing up. If you're going to get that said player at a discount, yes, do it. However, if you're reaching on options to just handcuff your running backs, you're going to be burning roster spots on your bench with those handcuffs. You're going to be limiting your upside. I would rather be the guy to handcuff someone else's running back. I would rather be the guy to take Dalvin Cook in round 1 and then take Tony Pollard, because if then all of a sudden Ezekiel Elliott goes down and I have 2 running back 1s on my team in Tony Pollard and Dalvin Cook, then that's how you be the number 1 team in your league. That's how you be the only team that has access to a ceiling that nobody else can touch. Now here, we are going to go ahead. We're going to take DJ Chark. DJ Chark's going to be a little bit of a unique pick in that I think in this format where it's cumulative scoring and we don't have the fantasy football playoff stretch in weeks 15, 16, and 17, DJ Chark is going to be a little bit more of an appealing option when we can assume that Jameson Williams probably misses the first month of the season given the fact that he tore his ACL in 2022. And if we're looking at Jamison Crowder, all reports are trending towards Isaiah McKenzie. I still prefer Jamison Crowder over Isaiah McKenzie, but I no longer think you can take Crowder at his ADP. If Crowder's the only wide receiver available to us at pick 159, maybe we go ahead and take him, but we'll see. Jamison Crowder, 156 by Noah. Can't blame the man. I mean, what else are you really going to do here? And he also goes Nico Collins. So now wide receiver is not going to be an option for us. Not going to be too interested in Marvin Jones. I mean, I would have been, say, if we would have gotten to Trevor Lawrence at pick 154, and we could have then taken Marvin Jones for the double stack with Trevor Lawrence, Marvin Jones, as well as Christian Kirk. But we have... Let's go ahead. Let's take Gerald Everett. If it was... You know what? I know y'all are going to laugh at me. I understand it. Obviously, Robert Tonyan's been a player falling in drafts. And I was laughing at other people taking Robert Tonyan last year. I was making fun of them. I was laughing at them to their face if you drafted Robert Tonyan in a league with me. But this is the year to do it. You have no Devontae Adams. You have a 30% team target share up for grabs. Of course, that's not going to go to Robert Tonyan, but it is going to be diversified between all pass-catching options in Green Bay. We go ahead. We take Aaron Jones in the second round because we want to go ahead. We want to bet on this Green Bay Packers passing offense still remaining efficient with no Devontae Adams. So let's take Robert Tonyan here over Gerald Everett, even though I know most people aren't going to agree with that. Brett says, hey, Mason, can I hear your thoughts on where Hopkins and Kamara should go in fantasy with their suspensions? My man, unless I missed something very big, Alvin Kamara is not suspended. Maybe something happened at the start of this live stream. And if something happened at the start of this live stream and Alvin Kamara was suspended and you did not spam the chat over and over and over again, I'm going to be pissed as hell. Okay, but no, I just searched it on Twitter. There's nothing. Repeat, nothing about Alvin Kamara. So, Alvin Kamara is not suspended. I think DeAndre Hopkins is really going to come down to the league format that you're playing in. I think that if you're going to be playing in a league that has cumulative scoring like this draft, not interested in the man at all at his price point as a 6-7 turn pick. If you're playing in a shallow redraft format where you do not have an IR for suspended players and you're going to have to burn a roster spot with DeAndre Hopkins, limiting your moves at the beginning of the season to try to find that next league-winning running back off the waiver wire like a 2020 James Robinson or a 2021 Elijah Mitchell, not going to be interested. Just no thank you. I'm not interested in a DeAndre Hopkins in that format. However, if you play in a casual fantasy football league where you can put DeAndre Hopkins on your IR, you don't have to burn that roster spot. You can wait until he comes back in week 7. Yeah, I'm fine drafting DeAndre Hopkins at the beginning of the 7th round. Or if you're in one of these underdog drafts where it's Best Ball Mania, it's a $25 buy-in. First place gets paid. Second place gets paid $2 million up for first place across the entire tournament. Because remember, if you get first or second in your 12-team league, you then advance to that fantasy football playoff tournament at the very end of the season where you need to optimize for your week 15, 16, and 17 scoring. There, I love the idea of targeting DeAndre Hopkins in the 7th round. So it really does come down to the format that you're drafting in determining how you should evaluate those players that are going to miss the beginning portion of the season. Because if you play in a shallow league where he's going to take up one of your 5 or 6 bench spots, guys, it's really hard to get past that through 6 weeks. Okay. So we have Donta Foreman, pick 174. I think that we can go ahead and take 3 quarterbacks in this build. If we're looking at quarterbacks that could be available to us on the way back around, Tannehill, Jared Goff, we're going to be fine. We have Robert Woods. We have DJ Chark. Wandale goes 176. J.D. McKissick off the board. Let's think this through. PB and Chill has Kelsey and Cole Kmet. They can't take another tight end. I am unsure if Girthquake would take another tight end when he has both TJ Hawkinson and Pat Freiermuth. He could. I don't know if he will. So maybe we just take a quarterback here. Maybe we just get Mac Jones and then take one of these tight ends on the way back around and then get another quarterback in the 17th. But I think that's the play. Maybe you could make the argument, Mason, you're an idiot. You should have just taken both of these tight ends. You should have taken Hayden Hurst and Austin Hooper and then get, say, a Ryan Tannehill and a Jared Goff, both at the turn at 17 and 18. That's a fair argument to be made. But if we're looking at Noah as well, Girthquake only has one QB. Now, that quarterback is Dak, so he only has to take a total of 2. Aleem coming out says, I just signed up for Underdog using promo code FLOCK. Thank you, my man, of course, so much for the support. Hope that you hop in our next draft with us, of course. I am about to set that up. We can probably make our selection here at 183, set our queue, and then get our next draft for it. So make sure you follow Aleem's footsteps. Make sure you go to the link in the live chat right now. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. We live stream these drafts every single night because they are so much fun. And when you sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK so you get our 2022 rankings, our 2022 fantasy football draft guide with 300 pages of information. And on top of that, you get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So go take advantage of that ASAP. Take advantage of that right now. And we're just going to take a quarterback here. We're going to go ahead and take Zach Wilson, mainly because I just want to queue up some tight ends, and then I want to be able to set up our next draft for everybody to join. So this next draft, we are just going to do, let's do a $10 draft. Let's do it. Actually, no, this one was, we'll do a 10. We'll do a 10. And you're going to see it in the live chat. I'm just going to say $10 draft here. And then it'll be a link to our private fantasy football draft for only people in this live stream. It will fill up very fast. If you are new here, a ton of people draft on Underdog Fantasy. A lot of people are having fun out here with us every single night. So if you're unprepared, it's going to fill up very, very fast. But thank you, of course, for everybody going down there and dropping a like on the stream. We just sent that link out. Robbie says, hey, Mason, can you grade my Best Ball Mania draft? Second pick took CMC, Leonard Fournette, A.J. Brown, Darren Waller. Really like the Darren Waller value in the 4th. Godwin in the 5th. Elijah Moore, Lance, Brady, Patterson, Rashad White. I like pairing up Rashad White with Tom Brady if you're going to miss out. So you have the triple stack with Brady, Godwin, Rashad White, and Julio Jones. Get James Robinson at what looks like a discount. I like the team. In Best Ball Mania in particular, I'm not a massive fan of reaching for our players, reaching for our stacks, like taking a Chris Godwin there in the 5th. And you know what? Actually, I like the team in theory, but at one point, stacking one offense goes a little bit overboard. I forgot that you have Leonard Fournette on this team. Because if we go through this, if we are really trying to come up with the highest ceiling possible, a super team, right? A super team. You can get there, and it's more likely for you to get there to make a concentrated bet on an offense to bring in, say, a double stack, to draft Tom Brady, Chris Godwin, and Julio Jones. To draft Tom Brady, say Leonard Fournette, and Chris Godwin, whoever it may be, to get that double stack. But once we draft Leonard Fournette, Rashad White, Chris Godwin, Tom Brady, and Julio Jones, we have 5 players from that Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. Say this team somehow makes it to the final round of Best Ball Mania. Say somehow, some way, you are in that Week 17 matchup. 5 of your 18 roster spots are going to be accumulated in one offense. There is no way that the winning lineup in that format is going to have more than 2 to 3 players from the same offense. So you're going to be burning those spots. I think you went a little bit overboard with the stack in Tampa, if I'm going to be completely honest. Derek says, not right next to you this time. I am 2 picks away. Yeah, Derek here at 7. We got a lot of usuals. We got King View Mead out here in the live stream, was drafting with us a ton last year. NRG out here drafting with us a ton last year. Derek out. Mr. Right Now. Please spam the chat with where you are picking in this draft right now. Let me know. Derrick Henry off. Let's go Dalvin Cook. We went Najee Harris in the last draft. I think if I had to choose in a vacuum, I think Najee Harris is a higher floor than Dalvin. It is what it is, though. We will go ahead. We'll take him. NRG's at 11. Tyler's at 6. Caesar's at 1. Jack says he's at 1, so I don't know who we're going to believe with that one. Zeb at the 104. Ghost wide receiver at 10. Mark, of course, 13. Corvette, of course, 69. So thank you all guys for coming out and drafting with us. I truly, Appreciate y'all. Okay, so Joe Mixon goes 13. Of course, I am always in pain when we see our guy, Joe Mixon, off the board. I need more Joe Mixon in my life. We have a lot of them as is, but can never have too much Joe Mixon. Now, we took Aaron Jones in the last draft. Here, I guess we go ahead. We take DeAndre Swift. It is what it is. It is what it is. I think this is what the team that was drafting next to us in the last draft did. I think they paired up a Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. Hopefully this isn't a very boring draft, exactly what we had with the last one. Hopefully we are not going through and just taking James Conner in the third, Hollywood Brown in the fourth. Hopefully we can mix it up. I think that we will be able to. I think we'll have some different options available to us in the third. Richard coming out. Thank you, my man. Says, stupid question. I clicked the link and it takes me to the lobby, but not into the private draft room. What am I missing? Thanks. No, thank you, my man, for coming out, trying to get into a draft with us. So the link pinned to the top of the live chat and the one that automatically goes out there in the chat every, say, about 10 minutes is going to be a link to just Underdog Fantasy for the people who are not signed up that need to get ready to get in our next draft. That's just a common link. If that's going to go ahead, that's going to take you to the public lobby. So whenever I'm setting up that draft, like I said, I verbalize it out loud. I type $10 draft here, whatever the buy-in's going to be, and then I tell you when I'm sending out that private draft link. So I'm letting you know out loud, this is the link that gets you into the draft. I label it in the chat as well. That link that just says join our next draft here, that's just for the people that haven't signed up for Underdog Fantasy. And I shouldn't say people. There's probably one person in this chat not drafting on Underdog. I'd imagine everybody's on here by now. Golf for Life coming out says $350 play NFC draft. Herbert at quarterback, Jonathan Taylor, David Montgomery, oh my gosh, Jalen Waddle, Deontay Johnson, Robert Woods, Mark Andrews. And the flex, we got Melvin Gordon or Najee Harris. What are your thoughts? I really like this. I'm assuming this is not going to be a best ball format. I'm assuming this is going to be a weekly managed league. And there I actually probably would prefer going ahead and grabbing guys like Melvin Gordon, where if something were to occur to Javonte Williams, you could have a plug and play guy every single week. So you have the elite level QB. You have an elite level tight end. You have the running back one in fantasy. You have two potential wide receiver ones. You have a very high floor running back in David. I love that team, my man. I love it. Okay, so Nick Chubb goes pick 24. Javonte Williams, 23. Steele says, hey, Mason, do you prefer starting Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift or Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley in a redraft format? It's a good question. Honestly, I do think it's going to be up to you. Like, in my opinion, it's not worth arguing one way or another what my personal preference may be because I'm not strongly convicted in it. And I know there are going to be people in their own fantasy football drafts that go, oh, it's easy. You want Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. It's not even close. Let me ask the live chat right now. Would y'all prefer the combination of Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley or what we started with? Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. So let me repeat that. Derrick Henry and Barkley or Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. Let me know what you are thinking. Ghosted wide receiver says, second time drafting with you, this time next to you at 10. It's crazy. Thank you, my man, for coming out drafting with us in the live stream. I appreciate it. Okay, so we have one vote. We have a lot of people saying Henry and Barkley. Austin says Henry and Barkley, but it's so close. Never mind. We have the Cook and Swift crowd pushing back. Looks like we have most people going with the combination of Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry over Dalvin Cook and DeAndre Swift. Personally, I don't think it's easy. Maybe it's because I'm just not a massive fan of Henry this season, but I was not a massive fan of Henry last year. I mean, Henry was going at pick 3 last year, and I was just zigging when everybody was sacking. I was taking Davante Adams there instead when Davante Adams had like an ADP of 7 or 8. So maybe I'm not the best guy to ask with Derrick Henry because we were about to lose a ton of money last year before the Derrick Henry injury. Let's go ahead. Let's take Kyle Pitts here in the third round. Love getting Kyle Pitts. I think we could see Kyle Pitts outscore Michael Pittman Jr. straight up this upcoming season. And I understand that is very aggressive to say. Michael Pittman Jr., a wide receiver with almost a 25% team target share in year 2 last year, getting the quarterback upgrade. However, I believe that both of these passing down options are going to have below average quarterback play. Yes, I do think Matt Ryan at this point of his NFL career, going to be 38 years old, will be a below average quarterback. If you look at the past 2 years with his adjusted yards per attempt, Matt Ryan is clearly trending in that direction. And with Kyle Pitts, if you look at his trajectory based on his age 21 rookie season, he looks like someone that can legitimately break fantasy football. Like wide receivers that put up the rookie year that Kyle Pitts did at 21 years old, those guys are drafted as top 12 wide receivers going into year 2. Really, the only examples that we have of those guys are players like Juju Smith-Schuster, Odell Beckham Jr., Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. I think Mike Evans is on that list and maybe one other player that I'm missing. If Kyle Pitts had the elite touchdown season, if he had just a respectable touchdown rate last year, which he had 1.5 touchdowns per game his final season at Florida, and at the same time he has the largest wingspan in the NFL, we'd be talking about him in a completely different light. And this is coming from someone that was calling Kyle Pitts when he was going at the 3-4 turn as a rookie in an offense that had Calvin Ridley, the worst pick in fantasy. But now I think we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Travis Etienne at the 404. I was completely fine taking Travis Etienne a little bit before this. I was fine taking Travis Etienne over Breece Hall earlier, and I was excited to draft him there where we see Kingview Me decide to take Ezekiel Elliott and Breece Hall at the turn. I've tried to pump the brakes a little bit when it comes to Travis Etienne, and that we are now looking at James Robinson staying off the PUP and threatening, in my opinion, some of the touches that matter for Etienne. I don't care if James Robinson comes in and gets the carries between the 20s. No, not going to affect me. I don't give a damn. We've always loved DeAndre Swift. We've always loved Travis Etienne for the fact that they get the high value touches, the high value opportunities, the targets out of the backfield, and the touches in the red zone. However, I was very confident saying Etienne was going to have the red zone work, assuming Robinson was going to miss the beginning portion of the season because he's tore his Achilles like 7 months ago. But now that it looks like Robinson is going to be good to go at the start of the year, I am worried that James Robinson is going to have a role in the red zone. So I'm not as excited about drafting Travis Etienne here at pick 40. Okay. Golf for Life coming out says, have you had a good weekend? Thanks for the advice. Yes, sir. I've had a great weekend. Went to the movies yesterday, live stream last night, live stream tonight, live stream Friday night. So could not be a better weekend. Hope you had a great one yourself, my dude. And thank you so much for everybody going down there, dropping a like on the live stream. Aleem says, how many likes for another draft, Mason? What do y'all think? We've had almost 3,000 views on the live stream. Let's call it 450 likes, and we'll fire up another draft. And Miller says, is this your main job? Yes, this is my main job. Thank you to all the support for everybody getting our fantasy football draft guide on flockfantasy.com, or thank you for Underdog Fantasy and everybody who has signed up for Underdog Fantasy using promo code FLOCK, supporting this channel, allowing me to have this as my main job, allowing me to live stream every single night. So, of course, thank you for Underdog. Thank you for all of you drafting with me. Thank you for everybody going and getting our draft guide on flockfantasy.com. Could not be more excited. This is why I'm happy all the time, guys. I live the best life ever. My main job is talking fantasy football, researching fantasy football. Can you imagine? Danky No says, who or what got you into watching the NFL? Back when I was like 9 or 10 years old, my mom asked if I wanted to do her fantasy football league with her, and I said yes. Got addicted, of course, as one does. Took it over slowly but surely, and that's really what got me started with the NFL. I wasn't an NFL fan before I was a fan of fantasy football, but I was a fantasy football fan when I was like 10 or 11, so it's been a very long time now. And Gabriel Davis plummeting past his ADP. Gabriel Davis has made it 10 picks past his ADP. I think this is the team. No, this is not the team that took Josh Allen. So you have Derek with the team of Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. So I'd imagine he goes ahead. He takes Gabriel Davis here. I'm not a massive fan of Gabriel Davis in his ADP when he goes in the middle of the 4th round in the majority of these drafts. But if you're getting him 11 picks past his ADP on a Josh Allen team, you cannot pass that up. You have to take him there. Okay. So we have to take a wide receiver. It almost doesn't even matter. I know Rashad Bateman does go a lot higher than this. Rashad Bateman clearly has an ADP higher than Darnell Mooney. I don't understand why. Both passing offenses are going to be pretty bad. You're looking at Rashad Bateman as the secondary option in Baltimore, a team that could potentially throw the fewest amount of passing attempts in the NFL this upcoming season. And a lot of people want to hold that against Mark Andrews and telling you that Mark Andrews can't repeat what he did last year. I'm looking at the receiver that isn't hyper efficient on a per target basis, that had 1.3 yards per route run last year in Rashad Bateman. saying that's the guy we probably want to be avoiding in a low volume passing attack. So I don't have a ton of Rashad Bateman when he has an ADP of 54. I'll take Darnell Mooney here instead. I think with Darnell Mooney, we can also look at Justin Fields as a pick later on. Kingview Me decides to go with another running back here. Going to help us out selfishly whenever we start with Dalvin Swift and Travis Etienne. Of course, what we are going to be looking for is we are going to be looking for a wide receiver value in these middle rounds. Okay. Liam says, third underdraft for me, first with you. I'm at pick 8. Okay, my man, I will be excited to go through, check out your team. And I know we just talked crap about Rashad Bateman and his ADP, but he falls 10 picks past it. So let's go ahead. Let's take Rashad Bateman here. I think when Rashad Bateman's going to pick 54, it's going to be a player that I'm avoiding. Very rarely ever drafting him. But here, pick 64, it's whatever. I'm going to be drafting probably over 600 of these teams on Underdog this offseason, so I have to diversify somewhat. And if we ever get a player here falling like 10 picks past their ADP at a position that we need, we probably just need to go ahead and take him. But let's go look at Liam, who says, third underdog draft for me, first with you. I'm at pick 8. Okay, so Liam goes Henry Evans to start. Okay, so Liam putting his stamp on the question that we had earlier, and would you prefer going with Mike Evans or Deebo Samuel post Julio Jones signing and post contract extension? Clearly here, preferring Mike Evans. I don't think we can fault that. Then going James Conner round 3. I think Conner round 3 is perfectly fine. I mean, if you're looking at the production that he had in games where Chase Edmonds didn't play last year, he actually finished significantly ahead of this. Now, keep in mind, you're also having to bake in a decent amount of touchdown regression for James Conner, which is why he's not a second-round selection this season. Hollywood Brown in the 4th. Love the Hollywood Brown value. I completely agree. If you want to go ahead, you want to reach on Kyler Murray at pick 56. Probably not getting him back to you in the 6th round. Go ahead, do it. And Amon-Ra St. Brown at pick 65. My man, I think you've crushed this draft so far. Please, in the live chat, give your opinion on what you think of Liam's draft at 8. But for your third underdog draft, I think that's pretty damn good, my man. Steven says, Mason, during the season, how long does it take for you to check all your leagues week to week? Guys, I'm going to do over 600 drafts. The reason I can do over 600 drafts on Underdog Fantasy is because Underdog's obviously best ball. You don't have to submit your starting lineup on a week-to-week basis. It's automatically done for you at the very end of the season. And on top of it, you don't have waivers. So I can draft this team. I can go and I can look at how it's doing in week 6 and look at where it's at in the standings, but it's no time commitment whatsoever. If I never want to look at this team again, I don't have to. I can just collect my winnings at the end of the year because you better believe I am winning this draft. Now, I do have 25 plus dynasty leagues that aren't best ball, so that is going to take quite a bit of time, and I realistically probably work about 70 to 80 hours a week during the season. Y'all know I probably live stream 25 hours a week during the season. It gets pretty brutal. But those dynasty leagues, we'll find a way to manage. We've been able to the past 2 years. And at the same time, we should have a co-manager with us and Jay in this year that's going to help things out on our part, especially whenever I'm live on a Sunday morning for 4 hours for the games kickoff and we have player popping up on the COVID list. We have a player all of a sudden missing a game or obviously being a game time decision and us having no idea what to do with them. Okay. I understand that we don't have anybody from Cincinnati. We don't have anybody from San Francisco. We don't have anybody from Denver. So you probably aren't too excited. You're not jumping up and down to take one of these quarterbacks here with either Joe Burrow, Trey Lance, or Russell Wilson. But what the hell? Am I supposed to take Allen Lazard over Joe Burrow? I know it's like me using my lizard brain. I understand it. I can't take Allen Lazard. I can't take Hunter Renfrow over Joe freaking Burrow. We're going to be taking a quarterback here. I need a receiver, but we're going to go QB. Hawkinson goes, yeah, we're taking Joe Burrow, pick 81. I'm sorry. We don't have a Cincinnati Bengal. We can go ahead. We can get Tyler Boyd in round 11 or round... Actually, we'll get Tyler Boyd in round 10. I apologize. Tyler Boyd has an ADP in round 10, so we'll get Boyd then. But for the time being, when value falls, you take that value. If we take Joe Burrow here, I think we only have to draft 2 of these quarterbacks. But this is a trend. You are seeing these quarterbacks fall past their ADP. Jalen Hurts all the way down here at 68 earlier in this draft. Okay, Derek coming out says hit that like button. Thank you. No, sir. Thank you, of course, for always coming out to these live streams. And yes, if you have not done so already, go down there, smash a like on the stream. Let's get this stream to 450 likes. If we get this to 450 likes, we will go ahead. We will fire up another one. And Dak Prescott goes to pick 86 to NRG. So I guess we're going to go back-to-back quarterbacks. Let's see who we get between Trey Lance and Russell Wilson. Rashad Penny off the board. So let's go ahead. Let's take Trey Lance. I mean, we are not going to have any stacking options later on, but honestly, it doesn't really matter when Lance, you're not taking Lance for his passing volume. You're taking Trey Lance for his rushing production. We've been on the Trey Lance hype train. I've been the conductor of the Trey Lance hype train for God knows how long. And finally, we can draft him this year. I'm drafting Trey Lance in the 8th round. This is where I like his ADP. I like him being next to Burrow, Brady, and Dak. Like I said, the last draft that I saw, the last draft for me in Best Ball Mania, you had Trey Lance going over 20 picks before Tom Brady. Like, that's where it gets ridiculous. That's where even myself, I have to be realistic and I have to say the Lance hype is out of control. But at pick 88, this is where he does have league-winning upside, given his rushing ability and given the situation he's in with the skill positional players in Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, and even the coaching staff around him. Mr. Right Now coming out says, hey, Mason, I'm picking at the 102. What do you think? Let's go through. Let's check this out. Of course, my man, thank you so much for supporting the channel. At the 102, start with Christian McCaffrey. Can't complain. Javonte Williams. And then Alvin Kamara at 26. I've said this before, but if you're playing in a league where you're incentivized to go for a high ceiling in weeks 15, 16, and 17, like if you're in Best Ball Mania, if you're, say, in your regular casual fantasy football league where you obviously have the fantasy football playoffs in it, then yes, I agree that Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round is a fantastic value. However, in this league format in particular, where it's going to be cumulative scoring, where if Alvin Kamara were to miss the first month of the season and points in weeks 1, 2, 3, 4 matter just as much as points in weeks 15, 16, and 17, in this format in particular, I'm not a massive fan of going ahead and taking Alvin Kamara at pick 26. But still, I mean, can't complain about it too much. It's Alvin Kamara in the 3rd round. Kittle, 47, I really like. Lamar, pick 50, I love. Devonta Smith, DeAndre Hopkins. DeAndre Hopkins, going right back to what we were saying earlier. I think this would be a great draft if we had the fantasy football playoffs. But in these private drafts on Underdog, the private drafts are cumulative scoring. Who can score the most points in weeks 1 through 17? No fantasy football playoffs at the very end of the season. And in that format, with DeAndre Hopkins missing the first 6 weeks, it's going to be so hard to overcome those 6 weeks of production that you were letting up that personally, I wouldn't take Hopkins here. I would go Miles Sanders. I would go Kadarius Toney. I would go Christian Kirk. I would take Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I'd take almost any other option. I'd probably even go with like an elite level quarterback in a Joe Burrow. Okay. So let's move this out. Okay, so we have some people asking when the next puppy draft's coming out. I have heard the rumors in our live chat that we are going to have another puppy draft on Underdog tomorrow. Now, if y'all have been lying to me, if the people in our live chat who are saying that Underdog is releasing another puppy draft tomorrow, they're lying to me. I'm going to be very upset because I maxed out Best Ball Mania and I literally did the math on how many drafts I could do per day off the live stream, where on August 1st, Puppy would be open and I could fire up more drafts. So we're out of Best Ball Mania drafts. I better have some drafts I can do at the gym tomorrow. I don't know what I will do. Maybe I'll actually have to work out for once instead of sit at the gym and just draft on Underdog Fantasy all day. So we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Robert Woods. We took Robert Woods in the last draft. We talked about him in the video today. I think that he's a great wide receiver value in this range. If you're taking him around wide receiver 50, I actually like the combination of Treylon Burks and Robert Woods in fantasy right now. You're looking at a very concentrated target share between these two top options. They don't really have a significant tight end. At the same time, they don't have a running back that's going to command a decent target share whatsoever. So if all of a sudden the Tennessee Titans, with one of the worst offensive lines they've seen over the past decade, they have to lean a little bit more with the pass than they have in years past. If we're getting every target funneled through Treylon Burks and Robert Woods, I like both their values this season. I'm going to continue to draft Robert Woods here. And of course, the player that we want on the way back around is going to be Tyler Boyd. Let's see if we get him. The team before us doesn't have a tight end. Currently, Dawson Knox and Zach Ertz are the best players available according to ADP. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of either one of those tight ends. They decided to snipe us on Tyler Boyd. I can't cry about it. Tyler Boyd was the best available wide receiver according to ADP. So let's go ahead. You know what we're going to do? We're going to take Zach Ertz here. Going back to what we were talking about with us not having the fantasy football playoffs implemented into this league, I think that you're going to have a strong case to be made for Zach Ertz, where he should have the majority of his production in weeks 1 through 6 whenever you don't have DeAndre Hopkins in this offense, whenever Trey McBride, the rookie tight end, hasn't come along at all. And that's when we're going to be wanting to bet in a cumulative scoring format on a player like that. Now, if we needed to be optimizing for weeks 15, 16, and 17 for that fantasy football playoff stretch, hell no, I'm not interested in Zach Ertz here. But in this format in particular, I'm going to be fine with it. I think we can take Zach Ertz and get away with not having to draft a third tight end. Tsunami coming out says, do you draft Tyler Boyd if you have Chase/Higgins? I'm not reaching on Tyler Boyd if that happens, but I actually did have the combination of T. Higgins falling to us in the middle of the 3rd round, as well as I believe we had Tyler Boyd falling to us at the end of the 10th in a draft earlier today. I made that selection. We didn't even have Joe Burrow on the team, but I was sitting there and I was going, okay, Mason, how does this team have the upside to win $2 million? How does this team have the upside to break fantasy football? I was like, what would happen if Jamar Chase were to go down? And then all of a sudden, obviously, T. Higgins is possibly a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. We get back to Tyler Boyd with the target share close to 23, 24% in this offense, knowing that they have no depth at all at the wide receiver position. So I do think there's some contingency value if there would be an injury to one of the other wide receivers in this offense for the argument to be holding 2 of them on your team. Now, with that being said, I don't think you should go out of your way and reach on a second player like Tyler Boyd just because you drafted T. Higgins earlier on, but I wouldn't be avoiding it at the same time. I hope that makes sense. I would say, doesn't matter if it's best ball, doesn't matter if it's redraft. If you're getting them at a value that you like, regardless of if you took a Cincinnati Bengal earlier in your draft, I think it's fine having a T. Higgins and a Tyler Boyd, or a Jamar Chase and a Tyler Boyd. Rich Productions coming out. My man, I have not seen you out here in forever. Thank you. Thank you for coming out to the live stream. It says, rate the PPR team, Justin Jefferson at pick 6. Okay, I don't know how that happened. Clearly, maybe this is a casual format. We'll get there in just 1 second. I'll say, I love Justin Jefferson pick 6. I think Justin Jefferson should be a player that's off the board by pick 4 at the latest. But let me make our selections here. We're not interested in Cole Kmet. We're not interested in Tua Tagovailoa. We're done at tight end. We're done at quarterback. We're going to be looking at wide receivers and running backs really exclusively from here on out, unless we get a crazy value. If we get a crazy value falling to us, and then if we're also going to be honest, I think guys like Michael Gallup that are going to miss the beginning portion of the season in this format are going to be slightly less appealing. Maybe this ends up being another Mecole Hardman draft, even though I'm not too excited about drafting Mecole Hardman on a build that doesn't have Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, I do see some spike week potential with the pick, however. So let's go ahead and let's take Mecole Hardman as our 4th wide receiver, hoping that we just get 1 to 2 random spike weeks where Mecole Hardman comes away with, say, 4 targets, 4 receptions, 80 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns based on the offense he's playing with. But going back to Rich's question, in the second, you're going to go ahead and take Deebo Samuel. Then in the 3rd, you take James Conner. This is what I don't understand. Because if you had Justin Jefferson falling to you at pick 6, immediately my initial reaction is, okay, this is a casual format. This is going to be a league where everybody's pushing up running backs. It's going to be a league where you're just going to find so much wide receiver value later on. You still were able to get James Conner in the 3rd, Cam Akers in the 4th, Dobbins in the 5th. Kittle falls to you in this. This is a fantastic draft, my man. I'm not even an Allen Robinson fan this year, but if you're getting Allen Robinson in the 9th round, I think this is a very good draft if it's a 10-team league. I think it's a league-winning draft if it's a 12-team league. If it's like an 8-team league, borderline. If we get to an 8-team league, then I think it's not that good. Arthur says, thoughts on my draft at the 105. I don't know if I like it. My man, I'll be happy to look at that right now. I will say, if you're drafting at 5, I'm expecting a lot. Pick 5, in my opinion, is one of the best places to be picking this year. But let's see. Okay, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Devontae Parker over Jarvis Landry. I want to bet on Michael Thomas. I want to bet that Michael Thomas is the guy in New Orleans this upcoming season. I know it sounds crazy to bet on a wide receiver that has broken NFL records the last time he was healthy. But yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. We will instead go ahead and take Devontae Parker. But let's go through. Let's look. I believe we're checking out Team 5. Jamar Chase in the 5th reaches on Leonard Fournette at pick 20. I don't hate it. Obviously, if a Leonard Fournette just matches what he did last year, Leonard Fournette was the running back 5 on a points per game basis, you are just going to be crushing the field with this start. It's hard to assume that he matches that production 1 for 1. However, Leonard Fournette pick 20 isn't my favorite in the world. Keenan Allen, 29. David Montgomery, 44. Really like both of those picks. I'll say that for sure. I'm sorry. Actually, no, I apologize. I lied to you, my man. I think we go Deontay Johnson over David Montgomery here. Yeah. I think if we look through this, I probably pass on Montgomery at 44 in favor of Deontay Johnson. You find some fine wide receiver value at 53 with Juju Smith-Schuster. Jalen Hurts at 68, one of the best picks in the draft. So you end up having to reach on Kadarius Toney at pick 77, just because I think this team's a little bit behind the 8 ball at the wide receiver position because the David Montgomery selection. I think if you would have, instead of taking David Montgomery in the 4th and taking Deontay Johnson, you could have come away with the combination of Deontay Johnson and, say, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or even taken another elite level quarterback. Like, why don't you take Joe Burrow in the 7th round? That's what you should have done. In my opinion, the Kadarius Toney selection wasn't great. Go Joe Burrow there instead. Get 2 elite level quarterbacks. Pair them up with Jamar Chase. Ramondre Stevenson, 92. Personally, I'm going Chase Edmonds, but I'm not going to say anything bad about that. Lockett, 101. I really like the Lockett pick. Rojo, 125. I like it. Hunter Henry, 140. I like it. So, yeah, my main issue is I think if you have a Jamar Chase start at pick 5 and you get lucky enough to have Joe Burrow fall to you in the 7th round, you have to go ahead. You have to take Joe Burrow, my man. You can't pass on him there. And real quick, we are about to pass 450 likes in the live stream. If you have not done so already, go down there. Drop a like on the stream. If we hit 450 likes, we are going to get another draft going after this one. And also, if you want to get in our next draft, if you want to get in a draft with us any night, we do this every single night on the live stream. Make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. I also draft off the live stream all the time because it's so much fun. And then when you go and sign up to draft on Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you will get our 2022 rankings. You will get a 100% deposit match up to $100. So you're getting them for essentially free. And with a minimum of a $10 deposit, literally $10, 10 USD, you are going to get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, nearly 300 pages of information for you to dominate your fantasy football leagues this year. So please take advantage of that. Rich says, thoughts on stacking Deebo, Kittle, and Lance. At the value you did, love it. Let me repeat myself. Stacking at of value is going to unlock elite level ceilings for you, because if you made that bet on Trey Lance, or if you say drafted Deebo Samuel in round 2, you've already made a bet that Trey Lance is an above average NFL quarterback, because if Lance is atrocious and you drafted Deebo in 2 and Kittle in 6, you already lost your league. You're already done. So when you make those bets as is, might as well triple down, take Trey Lance, because you already made the bet that Lance is good. Might as well have him on the same team. Love it, the value that you had. Teresa says, Mason, I'd give my left kidney to not live in Louisiana so I could draft with you. Been with you for 2 years, Teresa. I know. Thank you so much. I will say I drove through Louisiana. Let me think on this 1 second. Let's take Robbie Anderson. But I drove through Louisiana when I was moving from Florida to Austin. And the entire road trip, of course, I was drafting on Underdog Fantasy. And let me say, I didn't drive. I rode through Louisiana. Don't draft and drive. But anyway, we went through Louisiana, and all of a sudden, I tried to enter a fantasy football draft, and I was like, oh, dear God, is this one of the only states that doesn't have Underdog Fantasy we are in right now? And that part of the road trip was significantly worse. Significantly worse than the rest. Rich Production says, missed you, my man. Been a busy year getting back into fantasy again this year. Happy to have you back, my man. Hope you've had a great 2022 so far. Hope you had a great weekend. And it's fantasy football only going to make it better, in my opinion, at least coming from someone who's addicted to fantasy football. Okay, so I think that at running back, we're still so strong. We have Dalvin, we have Swift, we have Travis Etienne. We're still trying to just find targets at the wide receiver position. I mean, our wide receiver room is weak, but you have to sacrifice something when you're coming away with Joe Burrow and Trey Lance, Kyle Pitts and Zach Ertz, Dalvin Cook, DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne. I mean, our wide receiver course is not horrible. We have Darnell Mooney, Rashad Bateman, Robert Woods. But let's go ahead. Let's take Nico Collins. I think Collins is a fine player for this format. And I hate to say this, of course, we shouldn't even be talking about John Mechie and fantasy football in the same sentence, wishing all the best for John Mechie, but we have to be realistic. with the departure of John Mechie from this offense, sadly, you are going to have just inherently more targets available. There's no wide receiver depth here whatsoever with the Houston Texans. It's going to make Nico Collins locked in to be the wide receiver 2 here. So despite before the John Mechie news, I was not drafting Nico Collins even when he was going in round 16. Like rounds behind this, I was saying not to draft Nico Collins. Things change. We have to react. And now I think we can draft Nico Collins here. Rico says, Rico, happy to have you out. Says, damn, I know I've been gone, but I had no idea you left Tampa only after 1 year. What did I miss? Homesick. Yeah, love Tampa, just like Austin more. I loved Florida. Zachary also back. Hope you were doing well, my dude. We got a ton of people back. I guess, yeah, it's about to be August. Tomorrow's August. So August is when everybody comes back for redraft fantasy football. Of course, my perception's a little bit skewed because I play Dynasty, so I play fantasy football 365 days a year. But I'm happy to have everyone back, definitely. So at this point, I think that we're probably going to take one more receiver and then 3 more running backs. So I selfishly want to take one receiver in round 15, almost regardless of who it is, so I can go ahead. I can queue up the rest of our running backs, and we can fire up another draft after this one. Thank you again for everybody dropping a like on the live stream, getting us to 450. ER7 says, is Travis Etienne a sleeper? Question mark. Travis Etienne goes to the 3-4 turn. I don't think you can call that a sleeper. Like, I would like to, maybe put a clickbait title out there saying, draft these sleeper running backs, and then talk about Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne was a first-round NFL draft pick last year. It's not like Travis Etienne is a sleeper. Tyler coming out, thank you, my man, says, my man, what do you think about my draft so far at the 6th spot? Okay, 6th spot, I hate drafting at. So let me make my wide receiver selection here and then go ahead, queue up a bunch of running backs. We'll look at your draft at 6th, then we'll go ahead, we'll set up another draft. As we prepare to set up this next draft, if you are going to join the draft, I don't need to hear your opinion if you don't want to join. Would you want it to be a $3 draft or a $10 draft? We've gotten back-to-back $10 drafts underway. Let me know if you want a $3 or a $10. Jack says, first time in a live stream, but I subscribed. Great info. Keep up the great work. Thank you, my man, for coming out. And please go in the live chat right now. Let me know if this is your first time watching one of our live streams. I kind of just assume that everybody here has been a part of the flock for a very long time, but let me know in the chat if this is one of your first times catching a stream. Okay, so let's see. 10, 10, 3, 10, 10, 10, 3, 3, 3, 3, 10. It looks like it's split down the middle. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead, we'll set up a $3 draft because we just did back-to-back $10 drafts, and we're going to get some high-stakes drafts going around the corner when it's August. Like whenever they open up the big dog draft, whenever they open up the $250 one, trust me, we are going to fire up a decent amount of $250 drafts. So we will have those high-stakes drafts coming when we get closer to the season. But for now, let's just continue to get our practice reps in. Let me allow y'all to get your practice reps in as well with these lower buy-in drafts. So we'll do a $3 draft after this one. Let me check out the team at 6 here. Then we'll go ahead. We'll make our next pick, and we'll set this up. Eckler 6, Barkley 19, DJ Moore 30. Really like the first 3 rounds. I mean, it's standard. With Justin Herbert here, pick 43. I think if you're looking back in a vacuum, you would probably prefer Deontay Johnson getting Jalen Hurts at 67. If you were to know that you were going to have Jalen Hurts making it back to you, I understand that you went ahead, you took Justin Herbert for the sack with Austin Eckler, but still. And Christian Kirk, 78, I'm fine with. You're kind of stuck in no man's land. I've reached on Kirk here before as well. I'm probably going to take an elite quarterback. I'm probably going to take Burrow. Let me take, I believe we need a running back, right? No, we need a receiver. Let's take Sammy Watkins now that he's off the PUP. But going back to this, Kareem Hunt, 91, I like the value of. Dallas Goedert, definitely, if you would have known you could have had Jalen Hurts at 67, you would have probably done this so you could pair him up with Goddard. Garrett Wilson, 115, I like the value. Dameon Pierce, 126. It's whatever. I mean, I definitely think you prefer Alexander Mattison and Ronald Jones over him, but at the same time, if this is where you're wanting to go with a running back, if you want to have Dameon Pierce over Kenneth Gainwell and Darrell Henderson, can't blame you. Go with another running back. Then Trevor Lawrence as your quarterback, Robert Tonyan, tight end. I've been drafting a lot of Tonyan. And then Isaiah McKenzie, possibly, just possibly, the starting slot wide receiver for the Buffalo Bills. I've drafted more Jamison Crowder than I have Isaiah McKenzie. So personally, I'm not rooting for it. Personally, I am going to be rooting for Jamison Crowder, but it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world if it ended up being Isaiah McKenzie. But let's go ahead. Let's queue up a bunch of running backs and then fire up our next draft. Drafts. $10 drafts. Actually, no, I said we were going to do a $3 draft on the whenever I determined that, but it was split like 50-50 with the vote. Whenever I went to set this up, I clicked $10 draft, so I apologize. We're doing a $10 draft, even if I said we were doing a 3, but I will label this. I will label this for everybody out here. $10 draft. I just sent that link out there. If you were wanting to get in, you know what to do. Go hit that link. This should fill relatively quickly. HM Bartley coming out says, how strong is the correlation between ADP going into week 1 and final standings? A few positions, a lot of variance, closer correlation at the top. Definitely 100% your final point there. You are going to have more correlation at the very top of fantasy football drafts. The rankings are going to be significantly more accurate through the first 3 rounds. And if you think about it, it makes sense. Those are players where we know how to project Cooper Kupp. We know how to project Justin Jefferson. We know what to assume with Jamar Chase. You know what their role is going to be in their offense. Whereas we go down to say, once you get to rounds, even not that late, 7, 8, and 9, how much variance is there going to be with a Brandon Ayuk, a Marcus Valdez-Scantling, a Rashad Penny, a Damian Harris? There's going to be a ton to project the roles that they're going to have in their offenses through the course of the entire season this upcoming year. It's going to be a very tough job, 100%. And then if we're looking at correlation, I think it's going to depend where you're looking. And I understand, guys, some people think I'm saying this just because we're drafting on Underdog Fantasy. And of course, Underdog Fantasy is the sponsor of this channel. But I would be willing to put Underdog Fantasy up against any other sites, ADP, and bet that Underdog Fantasy has the more accurate set at the end of the year. And it's not because Underdog Fantasy has done anything for this. It's just because that is where people that are very smart, they can get the most money down for their time investment. If you are going to try to become a professional fantasy football player, you can go ahead, you can draft $100,000 worth of teams on Underdog Fantasy if you max enter all their high stakes contest. And it's no time commitment during the season. So those players that are really professional DFS guys, they're going to prefer those best ball formats for their time value. So I think you have the sharpest drafters inherently on Underdog Fantasy, which makes this ADP a little bit more accurate. But that's not to say Underdog Fantasy ADP is going to be perfect by any means. So let's go ahead. Let's take Jamar Chase here, pick 5. Rico says $25 draft next for 600 likes. How about this? If we get 650 likes in the live stream, we will fire up another draft after this one. However, I don't think we can do a $25 draft. I already maxed out Best Ball Mania. And I don't think I can just observe a Best Ball Mania draft from the sidelines. It would be interesting if I could find a way to do that. Just look at some random drafts and we could commentate as they go through. But I already maxed out Best Ball Mania. I can't enter into any more $25 drafts myself. That's why I'm really hoping they have puppy drafts tomorrow. We've had some rumors of people in the live chat saying that Underdog Fantasy is going to have the puppy contest, Puppy 3, launching tomorrow, which I'm really hoping they do. Run says, Mason, are you going to go live with the Deshaun Watson news tomorrow? My man, do you know who I am? I am going. It doesn't matter where I am. If that Deshaun Watson news breaks, I am sprinting to this computer to get a live stream going. It doesn't matter what I have going on. That is my job. We will, of course, give you my initial reaction, my initial take to the Deshaun Watson news. I'm afraid we're not going to get anything concrete. Like we'll figure out tomorrow, of course. I'm not getting my hopes up to have a solid answer on how many games he's going to miss, but it would be nice. E-Money says, can you get into the draft on mobile? Yes. So let me repeat myself. And one thing I need to say, because I had yet again another 5 emails today. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and you use promo code FLOCK, like I said, you're going to get your 100% deposit match immediately. If you go deposit $40 on Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK and it's your first time depositing, you are going to get an additional $40 added to your account. You're going to have $80 sitting in there the second you do that. But for you to get our draft guide and our 2022 rankings, it is going to take about an hour or two in Underdog's system, and Underdog is going to send you an automated email. So what you need to do is you need to wait a couple hours, then check the email address you signed up for with Underdog Fantasy. And then if you don't see it there, check your spam. I cannot tell you how many emails I've gotten from people saying, Mason, I signed up for Underdog Fantasy and I didn't get the draft guide. Can you give me the draft guide? And then literally an email 30 minutes later that says, okay, no, never mind. Sorry, Mason, ignore me. So that's the first thing I need to say. The second thing I need to say is to join our drafts. That link pinned to the very top of the draft, that's just going to be to set up your account on Underdog Fantasy to make sure you are good to go. Whenever we have these private drafts, it will say like $10 draft here, and then it will be the link in the live chat, or $3 draft here, or $50 draft here, $100 draft here. If it says join our next draft here, that's for you to go set up your Underdog Fantasy account. And of course, use promo code FLOCK when you do it. Okay, so we have Deebo Samuel pick 20. I think I am going to be more excited about taking Deebo Samuel here. Like I said, last night in the live stream, I've been taking Deebo Samuel at pick 20. Like, let me see my exposure on Deebo. I feel like I've been taking him here a lot, but I'm never excited to draft Deebo. I'm never looking at Deebo Samuel at pick 20 and going, hell yes, I'm freaking pumped. We just got Deebo Samuel pick 20. But now I am more excited after the extension, because I do think you can look at the extension and say, well, maybe it means that they have larger plans for him this season than most people are projecting. Maybe it means his role from last year's pretty close to being safe in that he had almost a double the guaranteed money that DK Metcalf had. So pick 20, I'll be fine with Deebo Samuel. I just checked. We have 11% Deebo Samuel in these drafts. So we have been taking a decent amount of him, even though it hasn't felt like I have. I'm not in love with either wide receiver here. I even have DJ Moore ranked ahead of Michael Pittman Jr., but I feel like in some of these drafts, we have to mix it up a little bit. Like if I go ahead and look at my exposure of DJ Moore, I'm going to be close to about 15%. And if I look at Michael Pittman Jr., I drafted Michael Pittman Jr. in 4% of these leagues. So let's go ahead. Let's mix it up a little bit. Let's take him 29. I'm not excited about it. I would have definitely preferred having Nick Chubb, but I am a little bit worried about this draft pushing up wide receivers. If we look at the team at 1, deciding to go Cooper Kupp at pick 1, then following it up with T. Higgins and A.J. Brown. We have the Justin Jefferson team going 3 wide receivers in a row as well. So I'm slightly concerned that we are going to have these teams pushing receivers up. And if this was a league with the fantasy football playoffs, I would go ahead. I'd take Alvin Kamara to try to chase that production in weeks 15, 16, and 17. But since this is going to be cumulative scoring, I think it makes sense to avoid Kamara in case he does get a 4-6 game suspension. Zachary says, got in a draft, a first time back. Let's go. Happy to see you out here, my man. Zachary, 23, picking at 11. Starts Travis Kelce and Devontae Adams. Have to be pretty damn excited about that. Finn says, the slant god is back in action. Yes, sir. You have no idea how much of the slant god I have. He's my number 1 most drafted wide receiver this year. His price is going up a considerable amount. So, of course, I'm very excited to see that because it was tough to come out here. Y'all have no idea the physical toll it takes on me, the mental toll for me to come and call Michael Thomas a must-draft player in round 7 and make so many videos on it. And then he starts slipping in ADP. He starts slipping to round 8. And all of a sudden, Michael Thomas is a late 8th round selection. And I was telling people to draft him in round 7. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess we got to double down on Michael Thomas. I guess I got to keep on drafting him. I guess I got to just tell people, oh, he was a value in round 7. He's still going to be a value in round 8. So it's nice to see his ADP trending in the opposite direction. It's nice to see that Michael Thomas is no longer the wide receiver 40 in ADP. And he is no longer being drafted behind Allen Lazard. Mr. Right Now says, I got into back-to-back drafts with you at the 102 again. Okay. Were you at the 102 in the last draft? I know you were in the last draft. I think you were at the 102. Let me pull that up. But this time starting with Jonathan Taylor, Leonard Fournette, and Nick Chubb. So complete opposite start to us. Let's see how it works out. Let's see how it works out. Okay, we are 1 pick away in our $1,000 draft, which, of course, we're not live streaming this, but if... Are there any Cleveland Browns in this range that we may want to wait until tomorrow to make our pick? No. David Njoku is the next best player for Cleveland. It's not for like 60 picks. Caden says, first time I've seen you take Pittman. Yeah, I'm not a fan of Pittman. Like, you know, I have DJ Moore ranked higher. It is what it is. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. OBS Destroyers, someone out here in these live streams very often. He goes, Deontay Johnson is going to be a player that I would have been excited about. Of course, y'all know I'm not looking for Cortland Sutton, even if Sutton falls 8 picks past his ADP. It'd be hard for me to draft Cortland Sutton because at this point, I have no Cortland Sutton. I have not drafted him in a single league. I have not drafted Cortland Sutton in a single league when he's drafted as the wide receiver 16, and he's never had a top 24 finish on a points per game basis, and he's going into his age 27 season, and Jerry Jeudy has dominated the man with his yards per route run, his target share, really any statistic you look at in games that they have both played together. So y'all know I'm not a fan of him. I would rather go into the season and be able to say I drafted 600 fantasy football teams, and Cortland Sutton was not on a single one. Mr. Right Now says, I got into, oh no, we already answered that one. Garrett says, where do I put in the code for the next draft? Okay, so if you go through the link in the description or the link in the live chat to join Underdog Fantasy and to get ready for our next draft, you'll be able to find where you put in promo code FLOCK, but if you can't find where you put in promo code FLOCK, you should still be fine because as long as you go through that link that I specifically sent out, promo code FLOCK should automatically be filled in for you. I would definitely double check if you can to make sure that you have promo code FLOCK there, but just make sure you're going through that link. Steven says, would you draft Ruggs over Cortland Sutton? Of course not, my man. Grant says, thoughts on Darrell Henderson's role this upcoming season? I do think that Darrell Henderson should see about 30% of the touches on a per-game basis in Los Angeles. I think Henderson and Akers are both more appealing with the offseason injury than you had from Kyren Williams, and Kyren Williams looking less likely to have a role as a passing down running back in this offense this upcoming season. So with Akers, I'm fine with his ADP. I'm honestly fine with Darrell Henderson's ADP as well. I think they're both running backs that should see usage on a week-to-week basis and have a ceiling that could possibly win you your fantasy league if one or the other were to go down. Now, one thing that I want to point out here is we have MJ Moss deciding to go 5 wide receivers in a row. Kupp, Higgins, A.J. Brown, Gabriel Davis, and Jerry Jeudy. 5 receivers in a row. So I think at this point, we probably take a wide receiver in our own right, thinking that these guys are going to be pushed up the board on the way back around. Like when you see one team start this trend, I think it's probably a good idea to just go ahead and draft Brandon Cooks here. And it's not like we're going overboard with this. Like Brandon Cooks still fits into our flex. We can start up to 4 wide receivers every single week here. So we're still filling out our starting lineup. Trey says, would you keep Kupp or Eckler in a 12-team league that other teams are most likely keeping a running back? I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to take Cooper Kupp over Austin Eckler. If it were to be a league where you can only start 2 wide receivers in one flex and you can only start a total of 3 wide receivers in a very shallow format like that, then I think you can have an argument for an Austin Eckler. But Kupp should just score so many more raw fantasy football points. Even if it's like a non-PPR format, I would say that you're looking at Cooper Kupp with more yards than Eckler. You're looking at Cooper Kupp with the same amount of touchdown upside. I know Eckler did outscore him in touchdowns off the top of my head. Cooper Kupp had 16 last year. Austin Eckler had 20 last year. Like I said, off the top of my head, if I'm off by 1 or 2, please don't go crazy on me. But I think you are going to see some serious touchdown regression from Austin Eckler. Grant says, what is your favorite pick to have in this year in a 10-team format? In a 10-team format, I'm going to be less excited about going wide receiver in round 1. It's going to be much harder to find running back value later on compared to wide receivers when wide receiver is going to be so damn deep in that 10-team league, where I think I would probably, instead of wanting pick 5 so we could get Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, whoever falls there, where that's usually my favorite pick in a 12-team format. In a 10-team league, I probably would prefer about pick 10 because with pick 10, you could go ahead and get Travis Kelce. You're going to get a significant edge if you have an elite level tight end locked in a 10-team format. Or possibly you go pick 1 or 2, get either Jonathan Taylor or Christian McCaffrey, and then be able to get Mark Andrews on the way back around in the 2nd round. But I definitely want that elite level tight end in a 10-team format. Okay, so we had a massive run on wide receivers before we were on the clock. Probably a good thing that we ended up going with Brandon Cooks. Y'all know I like me some Michael Thomas. Don't be surprised if we go Michael Thomas here. DeAndre Hopkins, I would not take, just given the fact that it's cumulative scoring. It's going to miss the first 6 weeks. So this is not the format to draft Hopkins in. Okay. So Bastro taking this down. Is Bastro on auto? Or is he queuing players up? Okay, I think he may be on auto because I saw him take the timer down to the very last second on another pick as well. Yeah, Juju Smith-Schuster may have been an auto pick. Let's see. Yeah, he goes Juju. It looks like that was an auto. We're going to take Jalen Hurts. There's a massive reason I'm taking Jalen Hurts here. And that's, let's go ahead. Let's look at what teams are doing in this draft. We had one team decide to pair up on the combination of Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, potentially skewing the quarterback environment overall. I love Jalen Hurts' upside at pick 68 almost regardless. And that Jalen Hurts was the quarterback 6 on a points per game basis last year, which, yeah, that's impressive. But it's even more impressive if you can consider the context that Jalen Hurts only had 6 games. Now I repeat, he only had 6 games with 200 passing yards. Now that you have A.J. Brown coming over, this offense should be so much more efficient overall. This offensive line is going to be better with returning pieces. PFF has them graded out to be the #1 offensive line this upcoming season. So I love Jalen Hurts at pick 68, period. And the fact that Lamar Jackson and Mahomes are on the same roster, I think it makes Jalen Hurts an even easier selection. Okay. So real quick, we have Javier asking if we were going to fire up another draft after this. We've had about 4,500 likes on the live stream. If we hit, 4,500 views on the live stream. If we hit 650 likes on the stream, we'll fire up another draft. Should be very easy for us to get there. Will says, I'm Bastro. Sorry, I thought I didn't make it in. Heart dropped when you said my username. Oh, yeah. You know, my man, you're in here. You're in here. I think you have a solid team so far. If we're going to go ahead, we're going to look through this. Eckler, Dobbins at running back. Then at wide receiver, Mike Evans, Mike Williams, Sutton, Juju Smith-Schuster. So, I mean, it's not a bad roster construction whatsoever. I mean, I'm not a massive fan of Sutton, obviously. I would have taken DJ Moore over Mike Williams. But still, I think you can hop into this draft right now and be in a fine position overall. Let's see what's going to be coming back around to us. Dalton Schultz is a player that I simply have not drafted at his price whatsoever. Fernie Wee on the clock. They decided to go Michael Thomas with their last pick. They decided to go Miles Sanders with this one. We don't have a stacking option, but honestly, I don't give a damn. I think that the quarterbacks are going to be pushed up so much in this draft that going and grabbing 2 elite level guys like Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson at reasonable price points is going to be fine. Especially, you look at Mr. Right Now. No idea what the hell he is doing. Legitimately, no idea what he's doing. But he decides to go Lamar, Mahomes, and Trey Lance. So this quarterback supply and demand ratio, it's going to get thrown off. When there's still an elite level quarterback that we're able to take at a decent point, according to his ADP, we are going to take him because when we're back up on the clock in a round, we're not going to have any quarterbacks ever at the top of the draft board that are best available according to ADP. Those guys are going to get pushed higher and higher and higher. Mr. Right Now says, not trolling. That's a fire quarterback set. Lamar, Mahomes, and Lance. Oh, my man. There's no way this team wins. I understand in best ball, you're going to have the quarterback 1 overall every single week. I understand. But the opportunity cost to spend 3 of your first 7 picks on the quarterback position in a 1 QB format. Oh my man, that is terrible. Terrible. If you wanted Lamar and Mahomes, I'm not going to fault you at the 4 or 5 turn, but to throw on Trey Lance there, it's going to help us when we have the combination of Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson at a value. But not going to help you. Christian Kirk goes 84. Antonio Gibson 83. At this point, I don't feel the need to stress over anything. We have a decent running back here with Cam Akers. I think we have a running back to build around. Obviously, we're going to go with the hero RB approach. We have good wide receiver depth as well as top end talent. It would be nice if we would have had a TJ Hawkinson falling to us, which we are possibly going to have Hawkinson falling to us to pick 96 in our $1,000 draft. I can show y'all at the end of this live stream, at the end of this draft, potentially. This live stream may end after this draft if we do not hit 650 likes on the stream. So maybe we can show the $1,000 draft then, but I'm going to be excited about that potential Hawkinson value. In this one, Pollard's been someone I'm not drafting at all. Like, it's funny because on the live stream, everybody's taking Clyde Edwards-Helaire over Tony Pollard. But if you go hop in just a regular public lobby draft on Underdog Fantasy, Tony Pollard has an ADP like 10 picks ahead of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Like Tony Pollard is 100% going before CEH. So I'm never drafting him. Barbershop on the clock. MVS is a player that I've found myself drafting a ton of in this range. Mainly because I draft Patrick Mahomes in the 5th round so much. But instead, I think we're probably going to be looking at the running back position. See where Barbershop goes. He goes Penny. Yeah, we're going to go ahead. We're going to take Chase Edmonds. With Edmonds, I think that this should be the lead running back in Miami this upcoming season. If you look at the contract that he got and compare that to Raheem Mostert, if you look at the contract that he got and compare that to Sony Michel, combine that with the fact that neither Raheem Mostert or Sony Michel are capable pass-catching running backs by any stretch of the imagination. So Chase Edmonds, 92. At the absolute worst case scenario, he's still the passing down running back in Miami. Worst case scenario. Best case scenario, he's a running back seeing 60 to 70% of the work. 91-6 coming out says, I'm in a 14-team fantasy football league that plays 2 quarterbacks at the same time. I have the number 1 pick. What rounds should I pick my quarterback in? Okay, we actually talked about this in depth in our Dynasty research book. I'm unsure if you had the chance to read that this offseason. It was over 100 pages. But we talked about Superflex draft strategy, and we dove into the very specific adjustments you need to be making in with your Superflex draft strategy. And one of the number 1 things that goes overlooked is the size of your league. So thank you so much for bringing up that you're playing in a 14-team format, because if we just do some quick napkin math here, right? And you're playing in a 10-team Superflex league, right? You're playing in a 10-team Superflex league. You could have everybody in the league trying to get 3 quarterbacks. You could have, say, 9 teams in the league with 3 quarterbacks, or even we'll do 8 teams in the league with 3 quarterbacks, and you could still have 2 teams in the league with 4 starting QBs in a super flex format. Like, quarterback depth is so easy to come by in that 10-team format. And you contrast this with a 14-team league where everybody wants 3 starting quarterbacks. That's not a possibility. Say just 8 teams in the league are able to get those 3 starting quarterbacks. That's going to equal 24 starting quarterbacks out of the player pool. There are only 8 starting quarterbacks left available for 6 total teams. So to divvy that up, you're going to be in a spot where quarterback is king in a 14-team format. I would take Josh Allen at pick 1 overall, and then I would go ahead and I would try to get another quarterback if we can get someone good falling to us at the 2-3 turn. But it's because it's a 14-team Superflex format. If it was a 10-team league, I probably wouldn't even tell you to take Josh Allen at 1 overall. You just have to adjust because the supply and demand of the position is very unique at quarterback, where it's a set amount of starters you have every single week. It's a set amount of guys. We have Scissors coming out in the chat. Says, how we doing, my man? Not that great. I maxed out Best Ball Mania today, but rumor has it in the chat that we have the Puppy 3 opening up tomorrow. So if we have the Puppy 3 opening up tomorrow, I expect you to come out, fire up some drafts with us, especially if we have some big news with Deshaun Watson. Presumably going to have draft boards looking very different tomorrow. Like, let me ask all this real quick. Let's look at Amari Cooper's ADP, and we'll do this for a lot of Cleveland Browns. Let's start first with Nick Chubb. Nick Chubb, ADP of 26. Let's go through the hypothetical scenario. If you were to have an 8-game suspension for Deshaun Watson, where does Nick Chubb go to? Does he go up? Does he go down? Does he stay at pick 26? And we can say the same thing with an Amari Cooper. Amari Cooper here in this draft goes pick 63. This is actually a little bit before his ADP. Off the top of my head, I think Amari Cooper has an ADP of 67. So ignore this pick 63. Amari Cooper never goes before Amon-Ra St. Brown, Kyler Murray, or J.K. Dobbins. But would he be going here regularly if we had an 8-game suspension for Deshaun Watson? Scissor says, in a couple different Best Ball Mania drafts today, I was stacking Watson with Cooper and Njoku. My man, I have done that a lot this offseason. I have Deshaun Watson as a top 5 quarterback drafted this offseason so far, specifically in Best Ball Mania and Puppy drafts, because if you're trying to win $2 million, I've talked about this time and time again. There was at one point, Deshaun Watson was going in the 18th round. And I'm like, if we're realistically trying to win $2 million, who has a chance to get that for us? Deshaun Watson or a freaking Carson Wentz in the 18th round? So I have a ton of Watson. I honestly didn't even bother stacking Watson up too much, just because, I mean, if you're looking at Watson, I think you could possibly sneak a Watson team through. Say he gets a 10-game suspension, and then Amari Cooper really disappoints, Nick Chubb really disappoints, or Kareem Hunt really disappoints, and those Amari Cooper teams don't make it to the tournament. However, if you add Deshaun Watson as your quarterback 3 on the very back end of your roster and you sneak that team through, then all of a sudden you could have a unique player with an elite ceiling at the very end of the season. But I agree with you. I've been drafting a decent amount of Watson throughout the entire process in those underdog best ball formats, just for everybody on the live stream. And the underdog best ball formats like Best Ball Mania, where it's a $25 buy-in, first place gets paid in your 12-team league, second place gets paid in your 12-team league, but a small percentage of every league pot is set aside for a massive fantasy football tournament at the very end of the season, where all first place and second place teams get entered into for weeks 14, 15, and 15, 16, and 17, where you need to have access to an elite level ceiling with. So those are the formats that I'm taking Watson. Now, we take Tim Patrick at 116. I prefer Cordell Patterson over Patrick, but we took Russell Wilson at 77. We needed a stack there with Denver, so we're going to be fine with that. And at this pick, let's go ahead. Let's get Ronald Jones. I like taking Ronald Jones on a team where we don't necessarily have the running back depth, and we possibly just need touches every single week. So let's go Rojo here if we're drafting our third RB on a team where we took Cam Akers and Chase Edmonds. Whereas in the other draft that we did just right before this, where we're taking our running back like 4 in that format, then we can go ahead and we can probably take Alexander Madison over Rojo and just shoot for the highest ceiling possible. Caleb coming out says, been following since 4,000, showing how hard work and dedication can make your dreams come true. Thank you, my man. I appreciate you here for a very long time. I think we hit 4,000. I don't know when, maybe 2020, 2019. I don't know, but thank you, my man. Arthur says, I'm assuming you have said it a bunch, but what's going on with Watson? No suspension, question mark. We don't know yet. We get news with Deshaun Watson tomorrow. Caleb says 2019. Well, thank you, my man. I appreciate you, of course. And I'm happy that you're out in this live stream with us. And I hope that you can get in a draft with us sometime soon. Cody says, a flock, who's the number 1 wide receiver in Denver? It's Jerry Jeudy. You look at Jerry Jeudy. This is off the top of my head, so please don't get too mad at me if I have this wrong. You have Jerry Jeudy with, I believe, 1.9 yards per route run last year compared to Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton, both sitting at 1.6. You have Jerry Jeudy with, I believe, 46 receiving yards per game, and Courtland Sutton with 23 receiving yards per game in games that they both played healthy. Now, I will pull up our draft guide to double check those statistics, but I wrote them time and time again. I've talked about them time and time again, so they're burned into my brain at this point. I think that they are correct, but I will confirm for everybody just so we don't get anybody yelling at us in the chat. Let's see. Let me know who y'all want at this pick, too. But let me just make sure I have those stats right. And keep in mind, you have Jerry Jeudy as a wide receiver that's younger than Kenny Pickett. You have Jerry Jeudy as a wide receiver that's almost 4 years younger than Courtland Sutton. So for him to outproduce Courtland Sutton last year, it's freaking massive. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's take Dameon Pierce. I'm not ecstatic about Dameon Pierce in the 12th round, but you are getting in 10 picks past his ADP. We need another running back. He has a clear path to be the starting running back for the Houston Texans. But yeah, let me double check. Off the top of my head, we said Jerry Jeudy, 1.9 yards per route run. You had Courtland Sutton, 1.6, Tim Patrick, 1.6, and Jerry Jeudy, 46 receiving yards per game, and Courtland Sutton with 23 in games that they both played. I apologize. Got this wrong. Courtland Sutton was worse than I thought. Jerry Jeudy, 1.9 yards per route run. Courtland Sutton, 1.5. Tim Patrick, 1.5. Okay, so I'm sorry. Courtland Sutton was worse than I thought. And then when it comes to the receiving statistics, 46 receiving yards per game for Jerry Jeudy in the 11 games they played together throughout their NFL career, and 23 receiving yards per game for Courtland Sutton. So we got those statistics correctly, but I gave Courtland Sutton an extra 0.1 yards per route run that he does not deserve. So Jerry Jeudy, the younger wide receiver, the more productive wide receiver, the guy who was the wide receiver 1 last year on the Denver Broncos, will continue to improve as he goes into his age 23 season, where Courtland Sutton, the 27-year-old wide receiver, I don't know if he's going to improve too much. Arthur says, do we find out about Alvin Kamara tomorrow as well? I don't think so. I don't think we're going to find out about Alvin Kamara for a very long time. Kenneth Gainwell goes directly after Dameon Pierce here. Hunter Henry at 144. We definitely need a couple more tight ends. I think we're going to end up having to draft 3 tight ends on this build. I'm just happy we don't have to draft quarterback. Mr. Right Now. Oh my gosh, my man. You're going to get banned from these drafts. What are you doing here? He's just trolling at this point. He said he wasn't trolling earlier, but now he clearly is. Winston off the board. We're going to go ahead. We're going to take Nyheim Hines. I think in a best ball format, Hines is going to be intriguing because you don't have to predict when he has his random spike weeks. And if this was going to be a league with the fantasy football playoffs, I would go ahead. I would take Michael Gallup here instead because Gallup, if you look at the talent profile, he actually averaged more targets per game. And at the same time, I know you're not going to believe me on this, he averaged more receiving yards per game his second year in the NFL in the same offense as Amari Cooper. Like, Michael Gallup was very, very good back in 2019. And the contract that the Dallas Cowboys gave him, it was pretty nice. So I like Gallup. The issue is, in a league that's cumulative scoring, where weeks 1, 2, and 3 matter just as much as weeks 15, 16, and 17, it's going to be hard to take a wide receiver that's going to miss the beginning portion of the season. Gallup tore his ACL after Chris Godwin did. Okay. So we have Van Jefferson, 155. James Robinson, 154. Let me know, do you think I made a mistake with these 2 selections with Dameon Pierce and Nyheim Hines? Maybe we should have ignored the ADP and we should have taken the rising players with Kenneth Gainwell and James Robinson. Michael Carter Jr., 156. Love that Michael Carter Jr. value. I feel like Hayden has 2 of these steals of the draft here with pick 133, Alexander Madison, and pick 156, Michael Carter Jr. My man, fantastic picks. Let's go through. Let me recap this draft for anybody just now coming in here. So we drafted at the 105. We took Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel. Reluctantly took Michael Pittman Jr., pick 29. Not a massive fan of Pittman Jr. Then Cam Akers, 44. Brandon Cooks, 53, because we were seeing the trends with wide receiver, and we are afraid we are not going to be able to find value later on. And we take Jalen Hurts and Russell Wilson at the 6-7 turn to lock in elite level quarterback play. Get Chase Edmonds at running back, 92. Pair up Jalen Hurts with one of his primary pass catchers in Dallas Goedert at 101. Then we pair up Russell Wilson with Tim Patrick at 116. Go with some running back players that should have roles in their offenses, even if they don't necessarily have elite level ceilings, with Ronald Jones, Dameon Pierce, and Nyheim Hines. Now, let's pull this over. We do still need tight ends. Y'all know I have gone ahead. I've gone a little crazy drafting Robert Tonyan as of late. Mac Jones off the board. Yeah, let's continue to go crazy. I guess Robert Tonyan is going to go from a player that I just simply have not drafted at all over the past 2 years to one of my most drafted tight ends this season. I just like the situation so much better this year. Like, the situation is significantly better this year than it was a year ago. He's the same exact player. You're getting a massive discount on him compared to his ADP last year, which his ADP last year was horrible. NRG coming out says, Mason, on pick 110 in this draft with you. I think I managed it well with how skewed it has been from the 101 and the 102. Can you rate my team? Yes, sir. And I'll say 100%. If you did not take an elite quarterback early, you got boxed out. Like, it may be really hard to find that actual production. But Dalvin, Aaron Jones, I can't fault that. We literally just did that in another draft. Kyle Pitts, 34. I think if you would have seen the writing on the wall, possibly you go back in a time machine, you take Terry McLaurin over Ezekiel Elliott, but in a best ball format like this, I'm not going to fault anybody for taking Zeke here at 39. And then Godwin, 58. Going with Amari, I saw that you ended up getting the Watson stack a little bit later on, which I think you can be excited about, that Watson stack with Amari Cooper. If Watson were to only miss, say, about 4 weeks this upcoming year, I think it's a little bit closer to 8. Then Allen Lazard, 82. I would not like this Allen Lazard selection. I don't think this is going to be the guy I'm going with, especially when you have Antonio Gibson one pick after, even with the Antonio Gibson goal line usage reports. But you get Rodgers at pick 111. And in a league where I'm sure it was so damn hard to find quarterback value later on, it's hard to argue against this too much. Then Devontae Parker, 130. Julio Jones, 135, I like. James Robinson, 154, I love. And then setting yourself up with the Deshaun Watson stack. if this was a Best Ball Mania draft, if this was going to be a puppy draft where we needed to prioritize the weeks 15, 16, 17 production, I would love it. Here, cumulative scoring, not as great with the Watson call, but it's still fine. Okay, so we have Marlon Mack, 179. Zach Wilson, 180. Let's move this down. Sammy Watkins goes 182. Scissors coming out with the donation, as well as She Gobson. Thank you, my dudes. Of course, I appreciate y'all. And Scissors, it goes without being said. I know you probably don't want to. I know it's probably not your wheelhouse right now. But if you were ever to want to come on a live stream, you're more than welcome. But I know, I understand. Probably not what you're looking for at this moment, which is completely understandable. But we have 3 picks left. We're definitely going to want to draft 3 tight ends on this build when we have Dallas Goedert, Robert Tonyan as our first 2 guys. I think we want a 6th running back as well. I think this is a team where we only have to take 7 wide receivers. I mean, we have Jamar Chase, Deebo Samuel, Pittman, Cooks, Patrick, Corey Davis. I think we only have to take 7 wide receivers. So let's grab 1 running back, 1 receiver, and 1 tight end to round this out. Tight ends, now that Hayden Hurst and Austin Hooper are off the board, I mean, tight end is going to be very gross. Quarterback, we're done. We're not going to be interested in Goff. Okay. We're going to prefer Brian Robinson here. If we don't get Robinson, we're probably going to be looking... Actually, no, Hamler. We have Russell Wilson. Robinson off the board. So let's go ahead. Let's get KJ Hamler. It's going to be our last wide receiver. We're going to need 1 more running back and 1 more tight end as well. I think getting the double stack with Russell Wilson, Tim Patrick, KJ Hamler, in my opinion, it's exciting. I understand that a lot of people are going to be more excited about Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. And if you had to bet who is the wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2 in this offense this upcoming season, of course you bet Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. It's most likely Jerry Jeudy and Courtland Sutton. But I think the gap between those 2 top options and the secondary options in Denver is going to be a lot smaller than most people are projecting. I think you are going to have a role for Alberto. I think you are going to have a role for KJ Hamler, a role for Tim Patrick. So we're going to be fine taking these guys. And Mark says, I might as well donate my money directly to you than lose it in a draft anyways. No, thank you, my man, for supporting the show. And I honestly would rather you have some fun. I'd rather you come draft with us. But thank you. Of course, you know I appreciate you being in the premieres every single day, live streams every single night. And I want you to come out here and draft with us. Zachary says, what do you think of the picks at the 111? Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's wait for 1 second. Let me make our own selection. We're done at wide receiver. We're done at receiver. We are done at quarterback. We are running back tight end from here on out. These tight ends are just so damn gross. Curtis Samuel, 194. Derek on the clock. I don't even know where he's to expect him to go. I don't think you can take Taysom Hill anymore with the Taysom Hill injury, especially if he's not at training camp. Like, I feel like Taysom Hill is a player that needs to be at practice. You need to figure out how to implement Taysom Hill in your game plan. It's not just going to be a plug-and-play player. Okay, so Fernie on the clock, taking it down to the very last second. Okay, we're going to go Jerick McKinnon. Super easy to take Jerick McKinnon here. I think with McKinnon, yes, we have Ronald Jones. Yes, I like Clyde. I like all the Kansas City Chiefs players ADP. Really, the only ADP I'm not over the moon about for Kansas City Chiefs players right now is going to be Juju Smith-Schuster in the middle of the 5th round. Like, I think looking at Juju, it's hard to say, especially with the contract that he got, that he is guaranteed to be an alpha wide receiver here in Kansas City. I think it's going to be a target share that's dispersed between a lot of these top options. And of course, you're going to have Travis Kelce seeing the bulk of it. But still, from an overall standpoint, I'm still betting on the Kansas City Chiefs to have a top 5 offense in the NFL. There's a lot of uncertainty this season, which is going to depress the ADP of a lot of these guys, including Patrick Mahomes. With that uncertainty, I'm finding value. We don't know exactly what to expect, but if you knew exactly what to expect, The wide receiver 1 in Kansas City would be a first-round pick. The tight end 1 in Kansas City would be a first-round pick. Patrick Mahomes would be a third-round pick. That's how it was last year. So I like taking these shots on the Kansas City Chiefs. Trash Can Boy says, hey, Mason, I messaged you on Instagram regarding registering on Underdog using promo code FLOCK. I will check my Instagram DMs for you, my man. Like I said, if y'all sign up for Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK, you will get that initial deposit match, dollar for dollar up to 100 immediately. You deposit $20 in Underdog Fantasy, use promo code FLOCK. You'll have $40 in your account that second. But when you get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, when you get our 2022 rankings from using promo code FLOCK on Underdog Fantasy, there's going to be a little bit of a lag in the system where it's going to take about an hour or two to be emailed to the email you signed up for on Underdog Fantasy, and it may hit your spam. So if you wait a couple hours, you don't see our draft guide sitting in your email, it'll be sent from Underdog. Then go check your spam, check your all mail tab. If you're using Gmail, check whatever, because it's most likely going to be sitting there. Let's move this down. We need to go ahead. We need to take a tight end. Spam the chat right now. What tight end do you want? Brevin Jordan, Cameron Brate, or Kyle Rudolph? Spam the chat. And dear God, it looks like we just hit 650 likes in the live stream. So you know what? I'm not going to give you all another shot. We're not going to give you an answer on that. We're going to have to go ahead. We're going to have to set up another draft immediately. Actually, I lied to you. We need to go and look at pick 11. Okay. Let's go look at pick 11 real quick. I'm sorry, Zachary. We're going to have to go through this quickly. It is getting late. We are about to do our 4th draft on the live stream. If you are not appreciating this content, if you are not subscribed to the channel, if you have not supported this channel by going down there, signing up for Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, what do I have to do, guys? Zachary takes Kelsey and Waller on the same team. Hate it, man. Hate it. I hate to say that. In a Best Ball Mania format, maybe I can get there. Maybe I can understand it. But in this one, no. It doesn't suit you well to have a unique roster construction. Thielen, Devonta Smith, I'm going to be fine with. I would probably prefer Amon-Ra St. Brown. Antonio Gibson, 83. Love that pick. Stafford, 86 is a little bit rich, but the quarterback got way thrown off here. Derek Carr to get that stack. Going through Van Jefferson to stack up with Stafford. Pickens, I like the value. Odell, 206. In the last round, I'm fine to go with Odell, but this is not the ideal format, in my opinion, because it's cumulative scoring. I'm sorry to go through that so quickly, my man, but we are firing up a 4th fantasy football draft here. I'm not going to ask you if you want it to be a $10 draft. Actually, they have $5 drafts we can do here. We're going to do a $5 draft on Underdog Fantasy that I'll get the link out. It's going to be a private draft for only members of this live stream. We will grab this link. I'm about to send it out there. $5 draft. Sent the link in the chat for everyone. Finn says, pick 4 in a 10-man league. Kyler, Jones, Elliott, Jefferson, Hollywood, Andrews, and Kittle as a flex. Michael Thomas and A.J. Dillon on my bench. What are your thoughts? Okay. Of course, first off, I want to say thank you for being a part of the flock and supporting the channel, my man. Second off, if we're looking at us having to pick 4, Justin Jefferson, easy game, easy answer. One of them's out of here. And then the next guy, Mark Andrews, easy game, easy answer. And I think Kittle's going to be less appealing when we're going to decide to keep Mark Andrews here. I mean, come on. It's a 10-team standard league. You're not going to want to put George Kittle in your flex. I think past that, we're probably going to end up going with Aaron Jones. And then for our last guy, it's between Kyler, Hollywood, Elliott, and Kittle. In a 10-team format, I'm going to lean with the running back, and I'm going to say Ezekiel Elliott. The wide receiver depth is not going to matter as much in the 10-team format. And Mr. Right Now is in this draft. Oh, dear God. And you know what is so funny? Derek is in this draft with us. Derek always drafting right next to us. Where is he at? He's at 12. I'm at 11. Of course. Of course, that's how it is. We have pick 7, the same as last draft. Carved Muffin. Have not seen the name in a while. They were out in every single draft with us last year. Maybe they've been in a few drafts with us this year as well, and I just haven't put 2 and 2 together. I haven't noticed. But thank you for being out here. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. Okay, so Jonathan Taylor goes at pick 2. Cooper Kupp at 3. I'm going to try to make picks immediately. I'm going to try to be fast because it is late as hell here. And my voice is going. How long we've been live? Been live for 2 hours. I think this is the first this is the first live stream of the year where we've done over 4 underdog drafts. Like in August, we are going to do 4 drafts pretty much every single night minimum. We're probably going to have some nights where we do 5 fantasy football drafts. So definitely gear up and get ready for that. But in July, this is going to be the only one. It's July 31st. We are gearing up for August, of course. The prime time to get in these drafts. Okay. So Supa Dupa, that's a hell of an underdog name. Supa Dupa? I mean, I'm jealous. I'm jealous of that. Decides to go Dalvin Cook at pick 9. I haven't been taking a lot of Devontae Adams this year. Like, Devontae Adams was my most drafted round 1 player from last season because I was looking at Devontae Adams and saying, hell, this is an option that we can almost pencil in to be a top 3 wide receiver and have an elite level ceiling guaranteed. However, it's a completely different situation this year. You have the downgrade at quarterback from Aaron Rodgers to Derek Carr. You have the upgraded competition with Alan Lazard now being Hunter Renfrow, with Robert Tonyan now being Darren Waller. So you have more target competition for Devontae Adams. I'm not loving drafting him as the wide receiver 5, but you kind of have to. You can maybe make the argument, oh, the pace of play is going to be better in Las Vegas than it was in Green Bay. The Las Vegas Raiders offense is going to be a little bit more aggressive. It's a fair argument to make. So let's go ahead. Let's take Joe Mixon at 14. Cheeky Opson says, how many likes for a 5th live stream? Oh, my man. It would have to be an astronomical amount. If we get 850 likes on the live stream. $850 likes on the live stream, we'll fire up another one. But the reason I'm saying that is because I do not want to fire up another one. I need to save my voice. We're going to do 4+ drafts on every single live stream, every single night going forward. Of course, we get multiple videos out every single day. Takes a toll, guys. Takes a toll. I know. P-Bro says, get that coffee out. It's not even about my energy. Like, I could have the energy to sit here and draft fantasy football teams all day. Like, I could be silent when we do this. I could zip it. I could sit here and draft for 24 hours. But it's just talking kills my throat. Okay, so we have Deebo Samuel falling to pick 21. I mean, with the contract extension, with what that may mean for his role this upcoming season, I think it'd be very excited if you are getting that kind of value on a Deebo Samuel. Okay, so let's see. Austin Asher on the clock. They get Jonathan Taylor at 2. Obviously, it's not every day you see a CMC pick at 1 overall. I'm not going to fault anybody for taking Christian McCaffrey. I mean, if you take Christian McCaffrey at 1, you got bigger balls than I do. I will 100% say that. Like, CMC does have a higher ceiling than Jonathan Taylor. And 9 times out of 10, when people talk about a player being injury prone, I'm like, okay, shut up. You can't predict injuries. Like, why are you talking about this? However, I would be lying if I said that the probability Christian McCaffrey went down to injury versus the probability that Jonathan Taylor went down to injury were the exact same this upcoming season. Like, even if I want to mainly say people in the fantasy football community can't predict injuries and 9 times out of 10, you're undervaluing, you're overvaluing a player for no reason based on your assumption of how you can predict those injuries, CMC has to be at a higher risk than Jonathan Taylor. Jack says, what time does Puppy 3 open tomorrow? My man, it's a rumor in the live chat that Puppy 3 is opening. I don't know. Sadly, I'm not important enough at Underdog Fantasy to know if officially Puppy 3 is going to be out. So don't ask me what time it's opening. I'm hoping it's open by the time I'm at the gym tomorrow because I will be happy to fire up 20 drafts. Mr. Right Now says, I just took Jonathan Taylor at the 102 in your last draft. That's why I went with CMC at the 101 in this one, my man. Okay, so makes sense. Like I said, if you go Christian McCaffrey at pick 1, I think you have bigger balls than I do. Maybe you want to diversify it's tough because you have to also view it, at least maybe you're not going to get in as many drafts as me this year. But if I'm going to get in 600 drafts, I'm never thinking, oh, okay, I took Jonathan Taylor at pick 1 in the last draft. Let's go ahead. Let's get Christian McCaffrey at 1 this one. I'm never thinking to diversify like that because I'm always going to have X amount of 101 picks, X amount of 102 picks. So naturally, my portfolio is going to be balanced between the 2 running backs. And we are going to take Mike Williams here. I don't love the Mike Williams ADP value where he usually goes. Usually he goes before Travis Etienne, before James Conner, before Jalen Waddle, before DJ Moore, not before AJ Brown, but he has an ADP of about 6 picks before pick 35. We'll take Kamara here. Alvin Kamara would have been a player I took over Mike Williams if this was not cumulative scoring, if we had the fantasy football playoff set up. But you do have to be concerned with the potential Alvin Kamara suspension in a league where points in week 1 matter just as much points in week 16. I hate saying it over and over again, but it's so important to think just through your draft strategy for the specific league that you're playing in. Obviously, not every single person is going to be in this exact format. That's why I want to go ahead and try to shine some light on my decisions here. Cheeky Hobson says, who was that Scissors guy? Scissors is a very small content creator, like aspiring. He reached out to me one day and said, you know what, Mason, I really want to be like you. I really want to be a content creator. I've taken him under my wing. I have tried to teach him a few lessons. I have tried to show him the ropes. One of these days. But Scissors saying, I'm hoping the puppy opens at midnight and I'll be drafting all night. I'm hoping not, because I'm afraid that it's going to fill like immediately. Like they have been filling so damn fast. Like Scissors, I was out of town. I was in Alaska, whenever the Pomeranian was launched and filled. If y'all don't know, Underdog Fantasy launched a Pomeranian contest that had like over 100,000 drafts, like 100,000 entries, and it was filled in like 2 days. It was like the 2 days of all offseason I wasn't drafting on Underdog, and I didn't even know they launched it. So my biggest fear is I wake up in the morning and the puppy draft is already 15% filled. And I'm like, oh dear God, we're only going to be able to draft here for like a week. Scissors says, did you get in the Great Dane? Yes, sir. I did get in the Great Dane. I'm going to make a video on it. I'm pretty excited about our start so far. We are 1 pick away from pick 96. So far, the team, we have Mahomes at quarterback, of course. Running back Taylor, Javonte Williams. Wide receiver T. Higgins, Devonta Smith, Michael Thomas, and tight end Darren Waller. So I think we have a pretty solid team. And I actually really did like the draft that we had in the Bulldog as well. I wanted to get in 1 Great Dane draft. Yes, it was a $1,000 draft, but I told myself if we can make a video on it, it's worth it. We can make a video, and if I could somehow win it, it's worth it. Derek says, yeah, and I've never heard of FaZe either. Who are they? Just a small group of YouTubers. I'm actually the CEO, the president, the investor. I've been looking to take it in a little bit of a different direction. I've been looking to implement some more fantasy football content throughout, but it's not going the way I've decided. I don't want to get into it. Yeah, I'll bore you with all the business details. Just some small little group that I'm trying to show the ropes as well. But let's move this down. We are about to be on the clock at pick 59. Looks like we're going to have I don't want to speak too soon. Gabriel Davis off the board at 53. To the team that decided to take Josh Allen. Like, Gabriel Davis has an ADP in the middle of the 4th round. If he's going to fall 10-plus picks with his ADP, I think it's going to be completely fine to take Gabriel Davis on a Josh Allen team, even if I don't like his price point. At some point, everybody has a price. Lucas says, what are your thoughts on Saquon Barkley versus Javonte Williams? Saquon Barkley versus Javonte Williams is tough because Saquon Barkley is a better running back. Saquon Barkley also has less competition for touches in his backfield, and Saquon Barkley should have a larger role in the receiving game. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one between those two guys. But Super Duper on the clock, pick 57. He goes Kyler Murray. So it looks like Derek decided to go 3 wide receivers over any running back. Let's take Juju. I think we're going to get one of these running backs guaranteed on the way back around for us. We already have Mixon and Alvin Kamara, so it's not the end of the world if we don't get a running back that we like. I would have liked Godwin if Godwin would have made it. However, he didn't, so we're going to move past that. Derek decides to go Josh Jacobs. Let's see if he decides to go back-to-back RB. He goes Elijah Mitchell. Okay, I figured that we were going to get one of J.K. Dobbins or Josh Jacobs. I didn't really care who it was going to be. I did see a tier drop off at the wide receiver position after Juju Smith-Schuster. So we've gone very balanced in this draft. Receiver, running back, receiver, running back, receiver, running back through the first 6 rounds. Let me know what y'all think of this start so far. Usually I try to get a little cuter than this. Usually we try to make some splashy plays and usually end up drafting a very bad fantasy football team. But maybe we should just keep it balanced. Maybe we should just go through and take the easy decision, which I think we did a fine job doing. I think we did. Okay. But Jalen Hurts, pick 66. Jalen Hurts has fallen in the past 3 drafts we've done here. Like, we ended up getting the Jalen Hurts value in the last one. Joseph says, even with the Titans line, you think he still does. I'm assuming someone said something about Derrick Henry. Mr. Wright now says, yes, the drafts fill up within 15 seconds. I got in the last 3 in a row. And yes, I'd say Mr. Wright now has a much better team in this draft than the last one. CMC, Keenan Allen, Michael Pittman, Allen Robinson, and DK Metcalf. Personally, I probably go with an elite level quarterback. I'd probably go like Lamar Jackson over Metcalf. But overall, I think it's a solid hero RB roster construction. Okay, so Dalton Schultz goes pick 70. Let's move this down. In terms of stacking our receivers with quarterbacks, we don't have too many solid options. Like, we could be looking at Derek Carr, possibly Jameis Winston later on with the passing down usage of Alvin Kamara. But still not access to one of these elite level options. If Lance were to fall, we could go Lance and then Brandon Ayuk on the way back around. But that's 10 picks away. I don't even think Trey Lance falls. Mr. Right now decides to go ahead. He decides to take Joe Burrow to pair up with T. Higgins. Actually, no, I'm sorry. He didn't take T. Higgins. He decides to go with Joe Burrow for the value of it. Okay, so DeAndre Hopkins picks 73. Scroll this down. Wilson off the board as well. So what's nice about this, even though we don't have an elite level quarterback, it's not like the draft last time. It's not like people are going through and hoarding the elite level QBs. I mean, every team here that has drafted a quarterback only has one at this point. I'm not going to be too surprised if someone decides to double dip and decides to take Trey Lance here. I mean, personally, I don't think it would be a horrible thing. So you get Jalen Hurts pick 66 and Trey Lance after that. But still, at the same time, I think we're in a pretty good spot. We are. Nicholas says, am I high for picking Derrick Henry at pick 2? Yes, my man, you are. You're crazy for picking Derrick Henry at pick 2. Derrick Henry, 28 years old. Derrick Henry at the same time playing with a bottom 10 offensive line this year. If we look at the past 3, he's had above average offensive line play over the past 3 years. The offensive efficiency should be worse with the departure. I'm sorry, one second. I got to think through this. The offensive line play should be worse with the departure of AJ Brown. Do we reach on Dak? Let's not reach on Dak. We'll just take 3 quarterbacks in this format. Let's take Christian Kirk here, pick 83. I was thinking about taking Dak Prescott at 83 and then Tony Pollard on the way back around and maybe try to find in some correlation that way. I knew Derek was going to go ahead, take Dak Prescott. Like, he has CeeDee Lamb. There's a reason Dak Prescott goes here in the majority of drafts. Even though in our last Best Ball Mania draft, I had Dak Prescott at like pick 110. It was the craziest thing ever. But after this, do we want to go ahead? Let's take Ayuk. The reason for this as well, if we take Hawkinson, I like Hawkinson more than Ayuk in a vacuum, but we still have to take 3 tight ends almost regardless. If we go ahead and take Brandon Ayuk here instead, then I think we're going to be able to cap ourselves at 7 wide receivers. I think we're only going to have to take 7 wide receivers. Then we can get away with drafting both 3 quarterbacks and 3 tight ends. So I like Hawkinson more in a vacuum. And if I was just playing in a shallow regular redraft league, I would take TJ Hawkinson here over Brandon Ayuk. But from a roster construction standpoint, I do think it makes more sense to just take the wide receiver. Steven says 1,000 likes for the next draft. No, we're not doing 1,000 likes for the next draft. If we hit 850, we will. But there's a reason I chose the number 850 because I'm telling you right now, we're not hitting 850 likes in the live stream. It's going to be damn near impossible. I don't want to say damn near impossible. It is impossible. So Allen Lazard goes 87. Obviously, Allen Lazard has a much higher ADP than Brandon Ayuk. And if anything, Lazard is trending in the right direction when we have Christian Watson dealing with a knee injury, when we had Sammy Watkins getting placed on the PUP list as well. So even though I do not have much Allen Lazard, like, let me be completely honest, guys. Allen Lazard used to be going in like round 10, and I was not drafting Allen Lazard then. Like, of course, if I could get in a time machine, I would go back and I would draft a lot of Allen Lazard in round 10, a lot of Allen Lazard in round 11. But here, pick 87. When he has an ADP in the 7th, I'm just not doing it. Like, Allen Lazard at one point in these drafts had an ADP higher than freaking Michael Thomas. I just can't get there. Now, Kareem Hunt goes 94. Tyler Lockett goes 95. And I feel like we haven't said this in like an hour. So I know the 566 people watching, probably 565 of them have heard this a million times. But there's this one person in this live stream that doesn't know where we're drafting or is not having fun in these underdog drafts. So I got to say it for them. We're drafting on Underdog Fantasy. We do this every single night. I've done over 400 drafts on Underdog Fantasy this offseason because it's the most fun thing you can do. That's why I'm doing this every single night. And when you go sign up to draft on Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, you get your first deposit match dollar for dollar up to $100. And at the same time, with literally just a $10 deposit, you will get our 2022 Fantasy Football Draft Guide. You'll get our 2022 rankings as well with promo code FLOCK. Link in the description. Go sign up, get ready to draft with us soon, and I will be happy, and I repeat, I will be happy to crush you in a fantasy football draft on a live stream. Kent says, Dynasty League, full PPR, would you trade Russell Wilson and Dalvin Cook for Christian McCaffrey and Derek Carr? Kent, could you please let me know if this is going to be a super flex or a 1 quarterback format? Please don't feel the need to donate to let me know. I am checking the live chat. I'm looking for your name. Please let me know if this is going to be super flex or a 1 quarterback format because, of course, that is going to have massive implications. So Sky Moore, Robert Woods go pick 98, 99. I don't even know what we're hoping for. Maybe we're hoping for Dallas Goedert making it back to us, hoping for some tight end value. Outside of that, like, we already have wide receiver depth. We have running back depth. I think we can almost go anywhere. Ken says super flex. Okay, so if you're looking at Russell Wilson, in my opinion, he's going to be in a completely different tier than Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr got a massive contract extension this offseason. But if we go ahead and we actually look into the details of this contract, yes, it's a $121 million contract. But in 2023, so next year, guess how much guaranteed money Derek Carr has on the contract? So his cap hit is $35 million in 2023. His cap hit is $44 million in 2024. Guess how much dead cap there is. Guess how much guaranteed money he has after this season in Las Vegas. I'm going to see what people say in the live chat. Let's see what they say. We're going to gear up for our pick at 107. I would love Dallas Goedert. If we don't get Goddard, I'm fine going Claypool. B-Huff on the clock. They decided to go Allen Lazard with their last pick. I mean, you're getting Lazard 10 picks past his ADP. They go Dallas Goedert, so we're instead going to decide to take Chase Claypool. I kind of want to just draft 7 wide receivers and then be done with it and then go ahead and begin to look at other positions. Nathan says fully guaranteed in 2023. I thought I remembered looking at some report like that as well. I wish I could share this. Actually, I think I can share this. Now, be prepared. This is going to have the screen very bright. Very bright. This is the Derek Carr contract. $34 million owed next year. $5 million of that guaranteed. In 2024, $44 million owed, $3 million guaranteed. Derek Carr's old. Derek Carr's 31 years old. Is going to be 32 next offseason. Or next season. I apologize. While I'm going to take him, actually, I know he stacks with Derek Carr. I don't even really. I know he stacks with Devontae Adams. I don't really care. We're going to take Tyler Boyd. We're going to be done at wide receiver. In Dynasty, I'm not going to be surprised if Derek Carr is not on the Las Vegas Raiders a year from now or 2 years from now. And I know at this point it seems crazy to say Derek Carr is a very talented quarterback, but things can change. The NFL's a wild game. They could save $30 million from moving on from him. So I'm going to go with Russell Wilson, probably. Let me read the trade question just one more time to make sure I'm not missing out on it. I do think Russell Wilson's a completely different class of quarterback and a completely different tier with his job security and situation that he's in. But yeah, Cook for CMC is the swap. I'm going to prefer Russell Wilson and Dalvin Cook over Christian McCaffrey and Derek Carr in a Dynasty Superflex league. Okay, so we have Tyler Boyd, Rondale Moore at the 110 and the 112. Colin says, as much as I love these streams, I can't wait to get waiver wire videos every week. I don't feel like that yet. Like, I do not have the fatigue from these drafts. I've done over 400 of these drafts, and I still get excited to live stream these every single night. I bet when we're, say, a month further into these drafts every single night, and I'm like 600, 700 drafts in, then I'll probably be ready to stop the drafts. Then I'll probably be ready to get around to those waiver wire videos. But for now, I'm still loving these drafts. I'm sorry, I did not mean to. Derek says, I'm just ready for the big dog again. Yes, sir, I am as well. I was so close to winning the big dog last year. I've told the story a million times. I just sound like a whiny little baby. And of course, so close doesn't matter at all. Anybody could say it, so it doesn't mean diddly squat. But at the same time, it would be very, very nice to be able to take down one of those titles. Derek says, my bank account isn't, but I am. Well, you can at the same time have fun and live through us in those live streams. Root for us. It doesn't have to hit your bank account if you just want to watch us and root for us in those $250 big dog drafts. Daniel says, who do you guys have going 4th overall? I have Justin Jefferson going 4th overall. And I do have overall rankings coming out, I believe, 2 days from now. Maybe the video comes out tomorrow. I don't know exactly what the schedule looks like for that. But it's either going to be, we have 2 videos recorded right now that need to come out. The offensive line rankings, the top 10 worst offensive lines in the NFL. And also our top 12 overall rankings for fantasy football. Smitty says, how much is the big dog? $250 buy-in. We're gonna fire up a decent amount of them. Like, that's what I'm saying. That's why I want to keep the buy-ins low with the drafts that we're doing right now. We're doing a lot of $3 drafts, $5 drafts to get the practice in, to make sure that by the time the big dog drafts come around, by the time we have those high stakes fantasy football drafts closer to the season, I want to be one of the best drafters out there. I want to be as tuned in as I possibly can. Now, of course, it's not like I'm crushing it, but we'll see. We'll see. If we have 700 $3 drafts under our belt, I think we'll be pretty set and ready to roll for those high stakes. Okay, so we are not looking at wide receiver. We're done at receiver from now on. We have 7. We took 7 early for a reason. We want to be able to draft 3 quarterbacks. We want to be able to draft 3 tight ends. And that's because this is cumulative scoring best ball. If this was going to be best ball mania, that wouldn't be my play. Gallup goes at 128. Perfect for us. Perfect. There's a pair of players I would love to get. If not, no worries. We're going to go one way or another. B. Huff on the clock. They have Herbert, Goddard at quarterback and tight end. Obviously, we're only interested in quarterback and tight end here. They only have 4 wide receivers. Possibly they go with the Tolbert or a Jarvis or a Devontae Parker. They go Pat Frymuth. We're going to take Justin Fields. We're going to get a quarterback that is in a horrendous situation, but does have rushing upside to go with it. And you have Derek doing the exact opposite of what we were doing. We are pairing up Fields and Cole Kmet. If we would have had B. Huff and decide to take Cole Kmet or Justin Fields, then I would have taken Tua Tagovailoa at pick 131, hoping to get the stack with Gesicki later on. But we are getting the Justin Fields, Cole Kmet stack here at the turn. Perfect. We get a quarterback that has access to a ceiling and a tight end that should be the number 2 option in that passing offense. We get correlation as well as 2 positions we so desperately need. Okay. Derek says, great minds think alike. Yes, sir. They definitely do. Mr. Right Now says, thank you, Mason, for an awesome live stream tonight. See you tomorrow. No, thank you, my man, for coming out so often in these streams. And speaking of seeing you tomorrow, I'm sorry, guys. We're probably going to have to cut it. If we were close to hitting 850 likes in the live stream, if it was possible, I would hold out hope for y'all, but I promise you, we are going to be live again for at least 2 drafts tomorrow night. We are live for 4 drafts tonight. We are going to continue to live stream these underdog drafts every single night. So make sure you go to the link in the description, the link in the live chat. Go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Get ready to draft with us. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up, so they'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You'll get our 2022 rankings and our 2022 draft guide with just a $10 deposit. Most importantly, you can have some fun in these drafts. You can draft with us on the live stream as we do this every single night. But let me send you a link to join a free fantasy football group chat if you want to. If you don't want to, I don't really care. You don't need a credit card. You don't need an email or anything to join this group chat. You just click the link, choose whatever nickname you want to be called, put in your real name. You can do one or the other. I would do a nickname. It doesn't really matter. But thank you. I appreciate y'all. And yeah, I'll see you tomorrow night.